we're gathered is the traditional territory of the Coast and the Straits Salish peoples. Specifically, we recognize the Lekwungen-speaking people known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations, and that their historic connections to these lands continue to this day. We do have most of council in chambers today, but Councillor Ney is joining us through Zoom by phone. So if you're wondering wherever the last person is, they are joining us, just not visible on your screen. With this, we just need approval of the agenda. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or changes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, none opposed. We have adoption of the minutes of February 28th. Oh, sorry, you cannot hear me? Oh, okay, sorry. There we go. My apologies, hearing echoes in the background. So we have, adoption of the minutes. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved and seconded. Changes, corrections, additions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Moving on to receipt of the committee minutes. We can actually do both the advisory planning and advisory design panel together. I get a motion to receive those. Moved and seconded. Any changes or changes? Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I do apologize. With previous staff, sometimes with the Advisory Planning Commission for properties that came forward, we would often get a checklist that would be filled out, and we would have a chance to see how they came up with certain criteria for some of their decisions. And I don't see a checklist on this one. I was wondering if there was a checklist. Could it somehow be supplied with respect to how they made up some of their decisions?
I think those usually come to council as part of the report, but Mr. Weber, are you familiar with where we include that information typically when it comes to council?
Thank you, Your Worship. I am not familiar with that requirement. Perhaps my colleague Caitlin, if she's on the line, she might be more familiar. She's
hello? No, I'm here. I'm here. Hello?
Hello? That's not Caitlin, no. Ms. Varela?
Your Worship, I apologize. I'm not sure exactly of the checklist that you're referring to. However, information usually comes presented in the staff report. So is there a specific piece that we were looking for? I just need a bit more information. Councillor
Zelka?
Thank you so much. I guess maybe I was spoiled by some previous staff, but not to draw too fine a distinction, but and I guess I would have to look up the previous minutes to get the exact name of the checklist that would often appear in the Advisory Planning Commission. I know the Advisory Design Panel also has its own checklist with respect to uplands. I'm not referring to that one. I'm referring to some aspects which maybe they were just trialed as part of the Advisory Planning Commission's procedures guide, which may not be finalized or something, but I just wanted to simply ask for more information about how some of these decisions were advised to us.
Ms. Varela?
So that information has, during my tenure, been provided in the staff report. I do remember there was some discussion about tools that were being developed by advisory bodies, but they never went through the process of being endorsed by council. And if council wanted to see additional tools for decision making, those sorts of things could be brought forward with direction to staff. We would just simply need that direction, and we would need a council endorsement of the tool. I think that practice predated the procedure bylaw, the committee and commission policy, and those sorts of things, where there were a number of different approaches, and then we streamlined and formalized. And if council wishes to continue refining that with additional tools, staff would welcome that direction.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you, I want to say thank you to staff for that, and I guess I'll work with other members of council who may have similar desires for more information in these minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. You can just also, we can work offline with staff on if there's anything, ways of improving these. I just want to make sure we get the right information to the council and to the public at the right time on these things. So with that, I don't see any other discussion on the motion to receive those two, 4.1, 4.2. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. We are moving on to item number 5. These are just rise-in reports from the closed meeting of February 14th. We don't have to read them aloud. We just need to rise and report on them. Councillor Braithwaite. Just moving the rise and report. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, not opposed? And thank you, Mr. McDonald, for your work coming in here. Mayor's remarks are very brief this evening. I just want to point out our flag is still flying in support of Ukraine at the front, and donations are still welcome at multiple sources. United Way, Red Cross, and others that are providing local and international support for the refugees. So certainly if you're interested in supporting, I think it's a very great, very needed cause right now. And the only other thing I wanted to just point out was that we have a town hall coming up, our second virtual town hall this year on March 24th at 6 p.m. And all members of the community are welcome. And it's really an open format to talk about items that are important to you. So with that, I'm going to move on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is our public comment and question period. And this is something we do at all of our meetings. So I'm just making sure I'm not skipping anything. It's looking at staff at all of our meetings. So we have time allocated here for members of the public to reach and talk to council. This is a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker, 30 minutes total. I think we have one registered speaker here this evening. Are they in person? Excellent. So you'll be a great guide for us. And so as we go through here, I'll give instructions. If you're watching on the live stream, however, and you wish to address council and you haven't yet registered, you can call the 1-855 number that is on the screen. It should be certainly within the agenda package. Hit the meeting ID, the passcode, and then hit the *9 to raise your hand. There can be about a minute delay. So if you're watching this right now and you want to speak to us, please do that right now. Again, that's the 1-855 number, and then log in through that process. If you are logged in through Zoom, you should be able to raise your hand within the application, and I will call on you through that. And once we're completed all of the public, we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Welcome. And if I could just get you to start with your name and your municipality of residence, and then we have 3 minutes.
Do I have this right? Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
All right. My name is Jenny McLeod, and I live in Oak Bay, 2608 Cavendish Avenue. I get kind of nervous when I do this, so I'm going to read what I've written. And I'm going to start off with my 2 key points in case I go over the limit, then I've said what I really need to say. So the 2 key points I'm going to be talking about are the need for a fully fenced dog park in Oak Bay, and the need for a municipal bylaw prohibiting dogs being off-leash in the Victoria Harbour Migratory Bird Sanctuary as per federal law, which I know is not news. I spoke with all of you last July when you voted on the request from 4 dog owners to allow dogs on Willows Beach from 6 to 9 in the morning during the summer months. I'm aware that you took the time to read the close to 30 letters that came in from people who, for varied and valid reasons, did not want dogs on the beach. As an aside, I want to say that it was unclear as to whether or not the dogs would have been off-leash. The concerns of the letter writers ranged from the threat from harassment by off-leash dogs to wildlife and migratory birds, to the safety of people with balance and mobility issues, to the well-being of people who have been bitten and/or frightened by dogs, to children who have become ill from contact with dog feces, to people who simply do not feel comfortable surrounded by dogs, especially off-leash dogs. These were all people who felt they would have been denied the opportunity to recreate and socialize on a public beach if off-leash dogs were present. In spite of the new signage and a dissemination of information, dog owners are currently deliberately and willfully defying the federal law and bringing their dogs off-leash to Willows Beach, Cattle Point, and other Oak Bay beaches where leashes are required. They are very quick to point out that the law can only be enforced by the feds, which further fuels what would appear to be a sense of entitlement. The lack of a bylaw means animal control officers can do nothing. I recently read a VAX report obtained through an FOI request regarding aggressive off-leash dogs on Spoon Bay Beach last summer. One of the dogs lunged at the attending animal control officer, who resorted to using his baton to defend himself. A second dog tried to bite the officer, forcing him to kick the dog to keep it away. The officer issued warnings, but because Oak Bay's animal control bylaw does not identify beaches in the definition of street, it was not possible to issue unleashed dog violations. Currently, there is a campaign of disinformation being waged stating that the Oak Bay end of Cadboro Bay Beach is deemed off-leash. This is especially concerning as that area is very close to Mystic Vale and nesting herons. That same campaign is spreading the disinformation that dogs are allowed off-leash at Willows Beach. This is all apparently driven by the fact that Oak Bay does not have a bylaw prohibiting dogs from being off-leash on beaches. There are days when I walk at Willows Beach that I feel like I have ventured into a dog park. I've seen a dog run full tilt down the beach from the turnaround at the washrooms all the way to the south end of the beach, flushing every bird present. Never mind that dogs are prohibited from the South Beach on or off leash. A week ago, I watched an out-of-control dog knock over 2 little ones and continue running. The parents scooped up their crying children, and the dog owner could not recall the dog. I sometimes see at least 5 dogs in a pack, charging in and out of the water and barking in a frenzy. No one would even consider trying to walk through that. Dogs need an appropriate outlet for play. I'm fully aware that it's important for dogs to have spaces to explore and run free. But public communal spaces such as our beaches,
Ms.
where it's
McLeod, if I could just ask you to wrap it up. We're over
yeah,
3
I'm right
minutes.
there. Where it's illegal to do so and where not everyone consents to that kind of shared space are not appropriate places for unleashed dogs. We need to be considerate of one another. Leashing a dog is one consideration that is respectful, empathetic, and kind, and it allows everyone to share and enjoy a public space together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McLeod. Thank you for coming in. It's nice to see faces in the chambers. Thank you. Is there anybody else here in person, Ms. Williams, that's interested in speaking? I don't see anybody online, so I'll give another few seconds here to see if anybody else is dialed in and hitting, again, it's *9. So that's the asterisk 9 to raise your hand. No. Okay, I'll keep an eye on the screen, and if I see any hands popping up in the next minute or so, I'm happy to go back and seek input. This is something that we do have available to the members of the public at all of our council and committee of the whole meetings. So by all means, if you're interested in addressing council, do so. And a good chance to plug the town hall that's coming up next week as well, which gives us a full 2 hours to talk interactively with members of the public. Councillor Zelka?
Thank you very much, Chair. I have a point of procedure, if I may, probably to staff. With respect to items on the agenda that are not open to public input, could the public speak to those items in a forum such as this at the public thing, or are items not subject to public input are off limits? I just wanted to clarify that, please.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Zelka. I think it's good for us all to be very clear on those rules. Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Your Worship. When Council revisited its procedures bylaw, one of the intentional steps that were taken was to frame the public input around land use applications so that the public input was provided at a very intentional place after the public has had an opportunity to become familiar with the application and could provide that input. So we don't anticipate that at the virtual town hall, which is a special committee of the whole meeting, that there would be input on land use applications that are before council. The purpose of the virtual town hall is more general discussion about policy decisions and things around the district that the public may be interested in.
The other part of the question was just on the agendas in general. We flag some for public input, some for not, and generally speaking, the things that are not for public input can't be addressed sort of around the back door through the public participation period. Is that correct?
My apologies, I missed that portion of the question. That is correct, and those are mostly around land use issues where there will be an opportunity for public input.
Thank you. And just for those watching and for clarity, for things that are on the agenda, we do, like as the next item, 8.1, the purchase of fire apparatus, we do flag them as open for public input, and we do seek those at the time. We find it's more beneficial for us to have the input at the moment it's on the agenda as opposed to in the public participation period, in general discussion at the beginning. We want to concentrate the conversation on those items at that moment. So thank you for that clarification, Councillor Zelka. I am going to move on, not seeing any other hands raised in our chat here to the next item on the agenda. We have Chief Hughes from our Fire Chief Hughes here to provide an overview of the apparatus purchase. Chief Hughes, I I saw you online. I'm having a hard time seeing you, but I'm assuming, oh, there you are. Welcome to the meeting.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Would you like to speak me to speak to this now, Your Worship?
Yes, I believe it's this is the time. We'll just have you do a brief introduction of the item, and then we'll take questions to you or other staff by members of council. And then, again, just to the members of the public, if you wish to address council on this item, if you have questions or comments, you're more than welcome to do so. Again, if you're on the Zoom, hit the raise hand button, and if you are watching the live stream, call the 1-855 number, enter the meeting ID passcode, and then hit *9. And when we get to the public input, I will call on you at that time. So again, that is *9 to raise your hand if you're calling into the 1-855 number. I'll make that call now, and but I'll go to you, Chief Hughes, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before you today, you'll find my recommendation for the purchase of a new fire pumper apparatus as well as an aerial apparatus. Combined, the purchase of these two pieces of apparatus are just over $3 million. As outlined in prior budget presentations, our fire pumper is in need of immediate replacement, and our aerial apparatus will be at the end of its 20-year fire underwriter's rated service life in 2023. These purchases will ensure the district continues to be well protected with modern purpose-built fire apparatus, ensuring the continued protection of the community and maintenance of the fire underwriter's insurance rating. As there have been previous questions regarding the portable building plan for the aerial ladder truck, I can report that the ladder truck housing options will be outlined in a project charter currently under development that will provide timelines and detail opportunities for public and council input. Additionally, Acting Deputy Fire Chief Frank McDonald has been very involved with this project and is well positioned to continue the project following my retirement at the end of the month.
Thank you very much, Chief Hughes. Other questions from council to Chief Hughes? Go ahead, Director or Councillor Zelka.
Chair, if you're willing to take the motion at this time?
Yeah, motions are always in order. We normally do questions and then motions, but we'll take motions, then we can have comments and questions.
Thank you, Chair. As the liaison to the emergency program, it's my distinct pleasure to move forward with the recommendations, as mentioned in the meeting, that both the report be received and that Council consider the staff recommendations to approve the purchase and the change orders within budget of the Spartan pumper and the Smeal rear-mounted aerial ladder truck with Suffolk Emergency Vehicles Limited, and that the corporate officer be authorized to execute any contracts necessary to carry out the purchases as worded in the staff report.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Is there a seconder for the motion? Moved and seconded. Thank you. You still have the floor. Do you have questions or comments?
The comment is, I just wanted to remind the public that our able and amazing fire department with the Oak Bay Emergency Program is always open to volunteers. I thought I would just take that opportunity to let the public know that if anyone would like some free training on emergency management, please let the fire department know. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Green, and then Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Chief Hughes, and thank you very much for the staff report, Chief Hughes. My just one question is, I see that the anticipated, excuse me, the anticipated arrival date would be mid-2023, given supply and service problems and so on, as you refer to in your report. I'm just wondering where both of these vehicles, or one or both of these vehicles, will be housed with the current setup at the fire hall. If a portable building is not on site by then, are there alternate plans or a contingency to house the vehicles? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I think Councillor Green was offering her garage just in case, Chief Hughes.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Green, yes, we do have fallback options that we have reviewed already to make sure that we aren't pushed into an untenable situation with apparatus outside. As well, we're looking at around a 400-day build time, and we could push that out a little bit farther if we really had to, as far as housing options go.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I have Councillor Patterson and Appleton.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Fire Chief, for bringing us his report. We've been, I think, discussions on these items for some time period now. A new item that is included in this is, of course, that we are going to use canoe procurement specialists to assist the district in procuring the equipment. And I may be familiar with canoe, but I'm just wondering if the chief could perhaps explain how the collaboration will take place between district staff and canoe procurement, and who will be responsible for leading that effort.
Thank you very much, Councillor Patterson. Chief Hughes.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Patterson. Yes, the Canoe is a group purchasing cooperative. We will work through Canoe to the manufacturer that manufactures Spartan and Smeal apparatus. There have been several districts that have undertaken Canoe, or previously Rural Municipalities of Alberta was the previous association that it operated with. And this group cooperative will work with the manufacturers and ourselves to ensure delivery at the best possible price. We're able to take advantage of group purchasing, even though we're a single municipality that buys very few fire apparatus. So it reduces a lot of staff time, as mentioned in my report, as well as provides us with a discount as well.
Great, thank you very much, Chief Hughes. Anything else, Councillor Patterson?
Yes, just one more question. In the report, it did say that Quint would have an additional 47% servicing potential. And I'm just wondering if we could get a brief explanation on what that additional servicing potential is.
Chief Hughes.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Patterson. Yes, servicing potential has to do with the reach and the capabilities of the ladder itself. The ladder is larger than the previous ladder. Is that answering your question, Councillor Patterson?
Yes, that was great. Thank you, Chief Hughes. Anything else, Councillor Patterson? Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. And a couple of questions through you to Chief Hughes. First of all, I appreciate the options presented in the report. I guess I was curious about having read in previous reports about the need to essentially custom design or have highly specialized equipment for our purposes. I'm just wondering how the purchasing and the design relationship works with the Canoe group. Do they access, do they work? It seems that the way I'm hearing it is that they work with a singular supplier, and then the apparatus is designed, or do they have access to different manufacturer suppliers, or how is that purchasing done, and how is that customization done through that process?
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Chief Hughes.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Appleton. Yes, there are multiple manufacturers, and we've selected a manufacturer through the competitive process within the Canoe group that best suits our purposes, and we will be working with the customizable features from the base truck with Spartan Smeal to ensure that it does fit within our needs. But the base trucks, we've already looked at the manufacturer's equipment, and that the base truck does fit our needs that is there, but then there are certain change orders that don't impact price that we'll make sure are part of the apparatus, things such as compartments, where they're located, making sure that we have fleet standardization between ourselves and surrounding municipalities, etc.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I think Chief Hughes just answered the second part of that question right at the end, but these apparatus are deliberately designed to have a degree of interoperability with sort of in common machinery with our neighboring municipalities. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, go ahead, Chief Hughes.
Through the Chair, Councillor Appleton, absolutely. We've already had conversations with our neighbors, as well as under the parts and service as well. We'll have access to a much more extensive parts inventory, as well as expertise around repair. So we fully expect to reduce any downtime significantly with that expertise in the local area and on the mainland.
Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Chief Hughes, for that. That's excellent news. Obviously, being able to, if you can borrow parts off of your neighbors, that's a great. If you get in a bind, that's a great option. The next question, my last question, is about what does one do with a used fire truck? And so obviously we're going to end up with 2 surplus apparatus here. And with the requirements to replace these on a regular basis, I guess a lot of municipalities will be surplusing their apparatus as well. And I've seen both sales of used apparatus and also donations of used apparatus. So I was just wondering whether or not staff had arrived at an initial plan about what could be done with that. I did see recently a news article about a donation of an apparatus to a community that was in need and a community that could make use of it. So I was just wondering whether those options have been explored yet.
Go ahead, Chief Hughes.
Through the chair to Councillor Appleton, we have explored some options. It's still early in the process for us to look at where they would go. If we weren't going to be going to a method, say asset recovery, we would want to come to council. If we were looking at donations, we have looked into donations to both First Nations and rural communities that may be in need. So those would all be options for disposing of our used fire apparatus.
Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Worship. So just from what I understand then from Chief Hughes, I certainly would be interested in receiving information at council about potential avenues for donation if that was an option. So if that's sort of implicit in the Chief's comments, then I'd be pleased to see that at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Just for our clarification, Chief Hughes, does that decision come back to council typically? I'm trying to remember. I haven't had that many changes of equipment in my time here. Does that decision of donation or other use come back to council?
Your Worship, I don't have all the details in previous disposal of apparatus, but as the apparatus have become more complex, the dollar value in the disposal of them is probably getting a little bit higher. But if council wishes, I'm sure that Acting Deputy Chief Frank McDonald would be happy to provide further information when that time comes.
Thank you, Chief Hughes. I think it would certainly be of interest to the public as well as the council in terms of what's happening with those existing pieces of equipment. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion, questions, or comments? And I'm going to open up to the public as well. Just one last call, and then go ahead, Councillor Appleton, and then well, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll be brief. I just would point out, and I've asked lots of questions about the replacement of the apparatus over time, and I would take the opportunity to point out that these are very large, very valuable pieces of equipment that, in a community our size, have significant implications on budget, and the need for them is clear, and the chief has made very, very clear the importance of getting that new equipment. But I think that I still remain with questions about the timeline for replacement, how it affects the insurance underwriter question. And I know this question has been posed by other communities and this has gone up through the Union of BC Municipalities as well. And so I'm still left with that abiding question about whether or not, how much of essentially a hardship it imposes on a relatively small community to replace multi-million-dollar equipment on a very, very tight timeline. And some of our colleague municipalities in the CRD have encountered the same thing. And so this is not anything to do with our own fire department or their need for the equipment, but I certainly have learned a lot personally and have started to ask some questions about the nature of the insurance underwriters' influence on things and how that might affect a smaller municipality. So that remains a bit of an unanswered question for me, not anything to do with our own department's need for the equipment, but certainly something that I think for the community to cast its mind to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. And I think we're beyond the timetable for AVICC submissions, but we might want to look at see what, you're right that the issue has come forward to UBCM in the past, and perhaps if it's supportive of the existing UBC direction, and perhaps we can do some nuance changes to make some suggestions at the upcoming UBCM as well. Councillor Braithwaite.
I just wanted to mention that I believe that in the past, my recollection is that we did get a report after the fact from the fire department in a donation that we made of a past fire truck, I think. I seem to have a vague recollection of that, so that is probably something that will come to us later, I would imagine.
I think it will, since we've asked for it now. Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair, and through you to Chief Hughes. The question has to do, I guess, it's touching certain aspects of climate change. If I recall correctly, 2017, possibly 2018, Chief Hughes's predecessor was seconded to the wildfires response at the provincial level, and my question, sort of two-part question, is. I understand also equipments of various fire departments could also have been seconded, requested through the Office of the Fire Commissioner. I just wanted to ask whether this equipment was there any consideration with respect to climate change in terms of the selection of the equipment and the kitting out, not only for our needs but potentially for our neighbors' needs.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Chief Hughes.
Through the chair, the apparatus that we'll be ordering here is very purpose-built for our community. That's not saying that it couldn't be utilized in a structure protection if needed on a provincial scale. However, it wouldn't be specialty. There'd be no special designs to look at that, either wildfire or something that would not be included within our district and our immediate surrounding communities, since that would be its primary responsibility. But it certainly could be repurposed if the province was in need and the department had the capacity to lend the equipment out.
Councillor Zelka.
Thank you so much for the response and for the opportunity to remind us all that we're all in it together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Question is here. I don't see any comments from the public who have indicated they wish to speak. I don't. Councillor Ney, I'll give you a chance to jump in here in case the *9 is not working for some reason.
No, I'm okay, Mr. Mayor. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Councillor Zelka. Councillor Ney. All right, the question is live on the floor. I'm ready to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Thank you, Chief Hughes and Acting Deputy McDonald. I see you're also online here, so thank you for your participation tonight, and good luck with that, with those acquisitions. We have another item on the agenda next. We're moving on to building and planning issues for public input. Again, if people are interested in adding comments, we have a couple of pieces of written correspondence for 3184 Central Avenue. If anybody from the public wishes to address council on this item, this is a variance being asked for. This is the time, if you're watching the live stream, to call the 1855 number, hit the meeting ID and passcode, and then hit *9 to indicate that you wish to speak. Again, that's star as an asterisk 9. With that, I'll go to Ms. McDougall to introduce this item.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. I'll actually be myself presenting this item.
Okay, my apologies, Mr. Weber. Welcome to the meeting.
Yes, thank you. The District of Oak Bay is in receipt of a development variance permit application to relax the minimum required clear space between buildings and structures regulation within the zoning bylaw on the property located at 2184 Central Avenue. The property owner is requesting to reduce the minimum required setback between two buildings on their property, a 2-story single-family home and a 1-story detached garage, from 3 meters to 1.53 meters to permit the construction of a 1-story bedroom addition to the rear of the residence. Staff presented the application to council at the February 28, 2022 regular council meeting. In agreement with staff recommendation, council directed staff to issue notice of the variance request to surrounding properties in accordance with the district's land use procedures and fees bylaw. Staff mailed notice of the variance request on March 4th, 2022, and as of noon today, 2 letters of support for the proposal have been received. Staff consider the proposed variance request to be supportable and recommend council consider issuance of development variance permit DVP 00119. And along with myself, the applicant and project designer, Russ Collins, I believe, is in attendance tonight this evening to speak to the application, should council have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is just for those watching and wondering the process for variances like this. These come to council for consideration. If we see it has generally meets qualifications for general support, we send it out to the neighbors for notification. They come back here, and we have that. So we have some correspondence from neighbors and support. At this point, it's back to council. If there's any questions of the applicant, or go ahead, Councillor Green.
I would be prepared to make a motion if that's agreeable.
Before you make the motion, I'm just going to make a final call for members of the public, just because I want to make sure that we have adequate opportunity for the public to weigh in. I don't see any on my screen. I'm getting head shakes from the from staff as well, so that's fine. So yes, if we can just give a motion to receive the report, and then we'll take the motion for approval.
Is it possible? Is it possible to combine those, receipt and recommendation?
It is, yes. Go
Thank
ahead.
you very much. I will make the motion to receive the report and also to follow the staff recommendation
Second.
that this application be approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarification, this is DVP 00119, just so if anybody watching, no, it's fine. Just to make sure that we're all very clear at 2184 Central Avenue. So moved and seconded for approval. Any other discussion? Don't see any, so we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much, Mr. Collins and the applicant, and good luck with your renovations. And we did manage to make you a little earlier in the agenda at this time, so you didn't have to wait as long for the discussion. So have a great evening. Moving on, we are on to item number 10.1 technically, which is the zoning amendment bylaw number 4807, probably the one that has the most interest here this evening, I'm guessing. So with that, I believe this time I'm going to Ms. McDougall as our planner. Oh, sorry. I'm going to introduce Ms. Williams first, and to give just sort of a general overview, and then we'll go over to Ms. McDougall. This is because, it's a site change of process from previous years, and we haven't had a rezoning application in a few years, so this is following under our new procedures bylaw. Ms. Williams, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. And you are correct. This is the first rezoning application that we've received since we've adopted our new procedure bylaw. And this rezoning application has a potential public hearing attached to it. So we thought it would be important tonight to just talk about what the process around those applications are, just for the benefit of the community and for council, because we did receive some written submissions on this one. So the procedure bylaw was framed to focus public input on applications once council had made that determination that the application had merit to proceed. When an application initially comes before council, such as this one this evening, the intent of that is to introduce the application to council and to the public so that everyone can learn about the specifics of the request that's before council and being proposed for the neighborhood. And through that introduction, council will assess the application and determine whether or not it has merit to go forward and call for that public input. So should council make that determination this evening that the application does have merit to proceed, members of the public will be invited to provide written comments or speak directly to council at a public hearing that would be held specifically for this application at a later date. And the process is quite intentional, and it's structured to provide the public adequate time to review the application prior to that public hearing and then come to provide their input. So the district has received a number of submissions related to this application this evening, and we just wanted to give council and the public a heads up that those submissions will be forwarded to the public hearing process and form a part of that official public hearing record once we arrive there, should council advance this application. The other tool, before I pass the mic back to council, that is available to the public if they want to learn more about the application, of course, is the development tracker on the district's website, which can give you application information specific to a property. So thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Williams. With that, I'll hand this over to Ms. McDougall, who can do an introduction of the proposal for council, and then we'll get to questions of council, of the applicant or staff, and then we'll seek some direction at the end of that process. Ms. McDougall, welcome.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. I'm just wanting to make sure that you can see this screen here that shows the presentation slides. I'm just going to start them here and
yes,
make sure
they're showing up clearly on our screens here. Thank you very much.
They're showing up clearly. Okay, and I just want to make sure that it's just the presentation slide here that you can see, correct?
That is correct, just a presentation slide.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So the district has received a combined zoning bylaw amendment and development permit application for 2326 Oak Bay Avenue, known as the Quest. The proposed development is a 4-story, 14-unit multifamily residential building with underground parking and interior bike parking included on site. The application is before council this evening for initial consideration of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments, the housing agreement bylaw, and scheduling of a public hearing. The development permit would come before council for consideration, likely concurrently with final consideration of the bylaw amendments at a subsequent meeting. The subject property is currently occupied by an existing single-family home built in 1936 and is zoned RS5 single-family dwelling. The proposed zoning for the Quest building aligns with the multi-unit residential OCP designation for the property and the multi-unit residential development permit area guidelines. The property is not a protected heritage property and is not located in the heritage conservation area. In terms of development revisions, the proposal for the property has gone through several design iterations to address various concerns brought up through previous rounds of consultation. The application for 2326 Oak Bay Avenue was initially received back in 2014. And this proposal included 15 units, rooftop gardens, an exercise room, water feature for the entryway, secured bike parking, storage, and underground parking for 18 cars. However, this application was temporarily put on hold while the OCP was being reviewed at that time. A subsequent application was later submitted in 2017, and those revised plans included a 14-unit building, increased the setbacks, reduced the floor area ratio from 2.1 to 1.98, and also included 18 underground parking stalls. The current development proposal includes 4 stories, 14 units, and 14 underground parking spaces with 14 interior bike parking stalls. The exercise room and activity area have been removed, and the floor area ratio as proposed is 1.87. The shared rooftop amenities have also been removed. The revised landscape plans and parking plans aim to preserve the Gary oak tree on the neighboring property by making changes at the southeast corner to reduce the impact of the excavation on the structural roots and the feeder root zone. In terms of input on the current application to date, there have been a few rounds of input. So on February 26th of 2019, the developer hosted an information meeting. 50 people attended that meeting, and a summary of the discussion notes are attached as attachment number 6. New plans were submitted in 2021 to address some additional outstanding concerns regarding building height and the Gary oak tree. And then on February 1st of this year, the development permit application went to the advisory design panel for review. ADP recommended approval, but did indicate that they wanted to see additional bike parking stalls included on the property to be increased from 10 to 14. And so the applicant did subsequently make those further revisions to their designs, which are before you this evening. And then as well on February 1st, the application went to the Advisory Planning Commission for input on the zoning bylaw amendments, and the commission recommended approval of the plans. So the proposed building would consist of 14 residential condominium units, ranging in size from 710 square feet to 1,152 square feet, each with its own private outdoor space. And there are a range of 1-bedroom units up to 2-bedroom plus den units, so a bit of a mix there. Exterior building materials are shown as soft white stucco, vertical stained cedar siding, and accented with vertical metal panels, concrete and stacked bond brick along the main floor. The building also incorporates dark sky principles by shining the lights towards the ground. And the landscape proposal includes 10 new trees, 64 large shrubs, 161 medium to small shrubs, and 836 other plantings on site, which are detailed in attachment 1. So looking to the OCP, all bylaws enacted by the district should be consistent with the official community plan, which is that high-level policy document that really represents the community's vision for the future and provides a framework to inform decisions about growth and development in Oak Bay. The proposed development plans have been reviewed in the context of the OCP policy and guidelines. Overall, the development plans align with the vision, goals, objectives, policy, as well as the multi-unit residential development permit area guidelines. The development also aligns with the regional growth strategy objectives. So the development proposal supports the following elements of the OCP's guiding vision statement for the community, which seeks to be a vibrant and safe community, to adapt and to embrace to the future, to support diversity in population, to offer a broad range of residential opportunities, and to have residents provide active contributions to local decision-making. That one specifically highlighted in the fact that this proposal has gone through several rounds of design iterations to incorporate feedback as that has come up. So as described in the staff report, staff have found that the attributes of the proposed development align with the following OCP goals, specifically around climate change and energy, the natural environment, the neighborhoods, the built environment, housing, transportation, and as well as business and commerce goals. The OCP also provides a set of policy statements that help guide the district's decision making and work planning. The development proposal for 2326 Oak Bay Avenue meets a wide range of the OCP objectives and policy as described in detail in the staff report, but some examples to highlight include managing growth by following the existing patterns of land use in general, and focusing higher density uses in an area that the OCP has identified for multifamily development, meeting natural environment objectives by integrating environmental considerations into the design process. The development supports the land use framework and housing objectives by utilizing building design and materials that enhance the existing neighborhood and by providing more diverse housing options that help meet the needs of the community. Similarly, the proposed development will achieve built environment objectives stated in the OCP by enhancing the unique sense of place through the design of the building and landscaping and by helping preserve the mature Gary oak tree. And the proposed development meets transportation objectives by improving the sidewalk frontage along Oak Bay Avenue and by addressing the safety of the road network through intersection improvements and road dedication. So the OCP establishes form and character development permit areas, and the subject property is in the multi-unit residential development permit area, which provides both broad objectives and specific design guidelines to help guide the physical site planning and building design. Overall, staff consider these guidelines to be met by the proposed development permit application, and an analysis of each of those guidelines is attached as attachment number 8. This development permit, as mentioned before, will come back before council at a subsequent meeting. So I'll try to keep it brief so we can talk more about that when that decision is back before council at a later date. But in terms of the site planning and building guidelines, the development meets these by providing new housing options in an area of transition. So between that main commercial node on Oak Bay Avenue and an established neighborhood. There's a bit of a transition there where this property is located. The building design contributes to the visual identity of Oak Bay Avenue, again, with its unique use of materials and design that are specifically for that specific property. The scale of the proposed development is also cohesive with the form and scale of the surrounding neighborhood properties, such as the Clive or the York House Co-op or the Newport Apartments. In terms of the rooftop garden, which was initially proposed for the Quest, now this was removed from the development plans to address privacy and overlook issues. And so this technically does not meet guideline number 8 under site planning and building, but staff would generally recommend support of this as a trade-off to help retain privacy, as each unit has its own terrace and balcony, and soft landscaping will cover most of the ground level. And here you can just see again with a couple additional renderings here where there's been some changes. This is kind of looking from where that single family home would be behind the subject property, looking kind of towards the building. You can see how some area has been created and removed there from the top story, really to help ensure that there's penetration of the sunlight over to the property to the north, also to create more additional openness. And again, you can also see how the building design has really used the natural grade of the property as it slopes to Where the property is lower, they go a bit higher, and where the property is a bit higher, the building comes a little bit lower. So that's really meant to help ensure that there's that light penetration and less overlook issues on the adjacent property. So in terms, the proposed development meets the overall intent of the landscape guidelines by reducing impacts on the neighboring residents and the public realm through building and landscape design. Privacy for adjacent neighbors is offered with the installation of a 1.8 meter high wooden fence along the side and rear property lines. The proposed new trees around the property can also provide additional screening as they mature. And the underground parking for the structure is proposed to cover about 80% of the lot. And as a result, most of the landscaping will be planted on top of that slab. However, the landscape architect has chosen specific species of plants that will be able to thrive in those types of conditions. And then the proposed development also meets the access, circulation, and parking area guidelines. The applicant has proposed a secure underground parking lot with 14 stalls. The aisle width between the stalls was reduced to 7 meters, which is 0.6 meters less than stipulated in the current requirements of the parking facilities bylaw. However, those proposed aisle widths would be addressed through the new comprehensive development zone and are consistent with what we see in other neighboring municipalities for these types of buildings. So overall, the design of the underground parking provides efficient circulation and typically meets the requirements of the district. And then to retain and conserve the natural vegetation of the mature Gary oak tree located on the neighboring parcel, the applicant has reduced the size of the underground parking facilities, specifically at the southeast corner of the property. They did this by reducing the number of stalls from 18 to 14 stalls. On-site landscape plans include 10 new trees, 64 large shrubs, 161 medium to small shrubs, and 836 other plantings throughout the site. 3 new Gary oak trees will also be planted beside the mature Gary oak tree to create a small grove. And the canopy coverage will be between 400 to 700 square meters once the new planted trees mature. A new CD zone has been drafted specifically for the subject property to address use, site development regulations such as height, density, setbacks, and reduced parking requirements for the site. This would enable the new multifamily building to be permitted on the parcel, keeping in mind the site-specific considerations given the size of the parcel and the proximity to other buildings. This zone is specifically meant to accommodate a building slightly above the RM3 zone. However, we've used that zone for a comparison here. So the proposed CD4 zone would really decrease the minimum lot area requirements by about 12% from that RM3 zone, enabling the proposed multifamily use to be permitted on a similar size lot, but a slightly smaller lot. However, the CD4 zone would decrease the maximum lot coverage by about 3.4%, which impacts how much of the lot can be covered by the built structures. The condominium units themselves would all exceed the unit sizes required for the RM3 zone, as they would provide average to larger size multifamily units. And so when compared to the RM3 zone, the proposed CD4 zone does have reduced setbacks, increased building and occupiable height, and increased floor area ratio. So this chart here just kind of gives a bit of a breakdown of the current zone, the proposed zone, what you see in the change between the current and the proposed, and then a column there at the end that shows the comparison RM3 zone and what that kind of looks like. Just give you a second to take a look through that. Overall, the CD4 zone would increase the permitted density allowed for the specific property compared to the existing zone and compared to the RM3 zone. However, staff consider the proposed site development regulations to be supportable given the alignment with the OCP objectives and policy and the site-specific context and the surrounding area. And this just helps explain floor, oops, there's a typo there, I apologize for that, floor area ratio, not ratio. Basically how floor area ratio is determined and where that number is coming from. That's often a a common question that comes up and came up with the Advisory Planning Commission as well. So what we can also see here with this application is that it's relatively consistent with other multifamily buildings in the community, such as Shannon Oaks, Village Walks, and the Belker Collection. And it's just an example of some nearby properties for context there. So some properties located immediately to the east and west of the property are zoned RM3 and are 3 or 4 stories in height. These developments cover approximately 35% of their respective lots and provide surface parking that covers approximately 40% of the lots. And that's just an example of what is nearby and how this development would fit within the context of that area. So the proposed development aligns with the utilities and service objectives stated in the OCP and will be built in an existing subdivision with municipal services running under Oak Bay Avenue. The development will incorporate an on-site stormwater management system that can mitigate excess flows and keep the post-development flows at the same level as pre-development. The project will provide road dedication along the frontage to meet the 20-meter width classification. The existing 1.5 meter wide sidewalk will be replaced with a 2 meter wide concrete sidewalk along the project frontage, and the developer will construct a bump out on the north side of Oak Bay Avenue at the St. Patrick Street crosswalk to create a safer pedestrian experience. Most engineering requirements and servicing details will be confirmed prior to the issuance of the building permit, such as pipe condition assessments, water service diameters, as well as sidewalk and crosswalk lighting requirements. However, engineering reports have confirmed that there will be no downstream capacity issues in the sanitary sewer network and that the existing water supply flows and pressure are adequate for the new development. BC Hydro has also confirmed that the applicant can provide underground services to the development. The housing agreement is proposed for the subject development as a condition of rezoning. So the housing agreement for the subject development would ensure that these 14 new condominium units would remain available for rental purposes and that the strata could not limit owners from renting the units. The units could therefore provide secondary market rental units, which would contribute to the supply of rental units and address the low vacancy rates in the community, which was cited as 0.2%. As of 2019. This aligns with the OCP's vision for Oak Bay to offer a broad range of residential opportunities in the community. Applications to rezone a property are required to submit a community amenity contribution proposal for council's consideration. So the district CAC policy outlines the general approach for considering community amenity contributions, including guidelines and targets for the type of amenities suitable to the overall vision for Oak Bay, which can be achieved through CAC funding. A CAC proposal has been submitted by the applicant, and that includes $4,000 per unit for a total cash contribution of $54,000. And they're also offering an additional bench, which has an estimated value of $2,000. Now, this proposal meets the contribution target established in the policy for the proposed number of multifamily units. However, council does have the ability to choose whether or not they want to accept cash, a physical amenity, or a contribution of both. A number of options are being presented to council this evening regarding the zoning amendment, the housing agreement bylaw, and scheduling a public hearing. They're presented out on the slide here, but also outlined in the report. But other than that, staff and the applicant's agents are here this evening in case council has any additional questions. So thank you very much. And I will stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you very much, Ms. McDougall. I really appreciate the overview. No doubt there are quite a few questions or a number of questions from council to staff or to the applicant. So I'll sort of list, and I do appreciate we have Ms. Coltman, Mr. Johankinecht, and then we have Ms. Winjack and Mr. Guy who are doing landscape architecture and urban forestry. So we have the full team here to answer questions. I'm going to start a speaking list. Councillor Ney, you were very quick getting your hand up. So I'm going to go to you first. And if there's any other, anybody else wish to questions? Go ahead,
Thanks,
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Ms. McDougall, for that very thorough overview of this application. That was very clear, and so was your report. Mr. Mayor, am I audible on your side of the?
You are audible. You're a little broken up, so I might just ask that you speak slowly and clearly, and that'll give us the best chance of hearing what you're having to say.
Okay. Thank you. My first couple questions actually are to staff, and should we address questions to the applicant as well in this round of questions, or are we doing those after the first round to staff, Mr. Mayor?
Just you can direct your questions through me, and I'll direct them appropriately here. So just ask the questions. We'll find an answer for you.
Okay. Thank you. So through here, I've just you provided a useful analysis of how this application is in compliance with the designation of the multi-unit residential area in the OCP, and you provided some explanation about the some of the characteristics. Is that hello?
Continue. Go ahead, Councillor Ney.
Okay, thanks. And you provided some further analysis about the way this application is in compliance with that designation for multi-unit residential. I was just really looking just for some clarification and more detail that I may not have picked up in your overview around that feature in the OCP. So, did you say that this application actually is under the amount that would be deemed allowable in terms of, you quoted a number 3.4%. Was that an FAR number you were getting at, or was that the density of the property, or that has to do with setback variance? Maybe you could just help me understand what that I thought it was a 3.4%. It was under a benchmark that would otherwise be permitted.
Sure,
could you just expand and clarify on that, Ms. McDougall, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ney. Ms. McDougall?
Yes, absolutely. So I believe what you might have heard me speak about there in the presentation was with regards to the CD4 zone that's being proposed. That would actually decrease the maximum lot coverage as compared to the RM3 zone. So the RM3 zone allows a 55% coverage, whereas the proposed maximum lot coverage for this CD4 zone would be 51.62%, or we can round up and say 52%, but essentially a 3.4 reduction from the RM3 zone to what's being proposed with the CD4 zone.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I just wanted to be sure I understood that correctly. And then just checking first, there's blasting to be done in this project, correct?
Sorry, can you say that again, Councillor Ney? That was a bit garbled.
Sorry. My understanding is there will be some blasting required to make this project work.
Yeah, thank you. I'll go to Ms. McDougall. It is underground parking, so do we know what the substrate is at that site?
Yeah, so the entire site would need to be excavated because of the underground parking. At this time, we do not know the exact geology, and we wouldn't really be able to determine that until after the building permit was being issued once digging began.
Okay. Okay, so that's not clear. Okay, so I had a subsequent question, so it's kind of perhaps a bit irrelevant at this point. So I have a couple questions. Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Through you, Mayor, to the applicant. Is it appropriate just to ask a couple questions at this point?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Councillor Ney.
Thank you. A quick question just around the electric car circuits that you're providing for each car and bike. Will those be fed into the individual units, or do they become a strata fee? I wonder if I could get some clarification on that, please.
Sure. Well, I think it's probably appropriate for me to bring in Ms. Coltman, and perhaps if you have any additional information on the excavation or blasting, you're welcome to add that as well. Welcome to the meeting, Ms. Coltman.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can now, yes. Thank you.
Hi, yes. I will leave the blasting question to Peter. He might have a bit more on that. I think Caitlin did answer that quite succinctly, as we don't really know what's under the ground till we look under the ground. In terms of the electric vehicle chargers, they will be assigned to each unit, and that way, and each parking stall is assigned to a condominium unit, so they will be charged individually, if that's the question.
Okay.
I believe that was the question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then, is there an estimate on this? It may be a little bit of an unfair question, but just to get a bearing on what this might look like, given the quality of the units that are being built here, what kind of an estimation in today's market would we expect that those units could be rented out with? I do appreciate you've got a range, the 1 bed and 2 bed and but what could you give an estimate of what the current is? It helps us understand, well, at least it helps me understand the kind of renter that would likely be able to afford those units. And I wonder if you could give us some ballpark kind of range in today's market. Like that the project won't be done for a year or two or whatever, but could we get some kind of ballpark on that?
Councilor, just for clarity, we are looking, these are condos, so if perhaps Ms. Coltman, if you have some sense of the approximate selling price and or rental, what aftermarket rental might look like, you're welcome to share that as much as you're able to.
Yeah, I can do that as much as I'm able to. I think if we just look to the market today, what's happening, and we see the Redfern being built up the way and what they're selling at, they seem to be selling at about $1,000 a square foot right now. And that varies based on the size of the unit. In terms of rental, because of the location, I think that makes them more desirable for sure. And anything shiny and new these days tends to go for more, regardless of the size and so on. So, I mean, I would say a minimum of $1,000 a bedroom, probably $1,500 a bedroom, at least on that avenue.
Thank you, Ms. Coltman. Councillor
Okay, thank you. And one more question right now, Mr. Mayor, if I may. I was just wondering, this is a south-facing building, and so several of the units will be experiencing the southern light exposure. I was wondering what kind of, we get these heat domes now, what kind of ventilation system exists in the units?
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Green. Ms. Coltman?
I'm going to defer that to Peter, if you could answer on that, Peter.
Yeah,
Welcome
I'm happy
to
to. Through the mayor, good evening, Mayor and Council. Overheating is really becoming more and more of an issue. We do have some, let's say, passive design with the balconies facing south, providing some shading for the units down below, but we also do have, larger windows that are exposed. So we have to assume that there will be some active cooling for those really hot summers that we do experience. We have that in a lot of developments now where that was never, like even 5 years ago, that was not really on the list of projects to do some form of cooling, particularly for units facing south and west. But we haven't determined that yet. So it's something that needs to be explored.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It seems to me an important feature of a building in this day and age, particularly you're going to have likely more senior people in those units, but we can discuss that later. Thank you very much for your responses. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I'm just going to do a quick follow-up so we're all very clear on that answer, which is just the... Oh, sorry, did I say? Sorry, my apologies. I called you Councillor Green. I was just looking this way and not at the screen.
That's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Ney. But as a follow-up to Councillor Ney's comment, Mr. Yonkanek, is that something that is done, that kind of level of detail, is that done sort of at the next stage then? So that analysis of the heating, cooling, HVAC needs of the building are completed next? Is that correct?
Yeah, no, that is correct. So it's part of the energy model. I mean, there's a commitment to meet the step code energy level 3. And that would be feeding an energy model that then determines exactly how much insulation the walls will have, what is the solar gain of the units, and where's the risk of overheating. And then mechanical systems have to respond accordingly. So that's really part of what we call the construction document phase and not at this early stage.
Thank you for that clarification. I have Councillor Braithwaite and then Green. I got it right that time.
Thank you, Mayor. And just going back to one of the comments that was made on the rental cost. If a unit is costing $710,000 to purchase for a one-bedroom, I highly doubt it's going to be rented at $1,000 to $1,500. I would imagine it's going to be over $2,000 based on a mortgage for that amount. But that's just an aside. I have a question to staff. How many other CD4 zones do we have in Oak Bay, if you happen to know off the top of your head?
Thank you, Councillor. I think this is it. But Ms. McDougall?
Yeah, that is correct. This is a site-specific zone that would really just be for this property, but we do have 3 other comprehensive development zones in Oak Bay. One of them being for most recently the Belcourt Collection.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. So it's specific to this particular development to ensure that it's going to be built as proposed, but we're still going to be looking for variances on it. Is that correct? Like variances in height and massing, etc.?
Ms. McDougall, there's no variances specific to this. Is that correct? You're just variances to what other zones? I just answer the question, I guess, Ms. McDougall.
Absolutely. It's a great question for clarification. So no, there would be no development variance permit process. All the site development regulations are really encapsulated in the zone as presented, and then would be approved if council were to approve that new zone.
Thank you. And then my next question is, aren't most buildings, I know it says in the report that they're building to step code or code step 3, but aren't most buildings nowadays built to code step 3?
Mr. Yonkanek, perhaps you're best suited for that.
Yeah, through the mayor. It depends on the municipality and what has been adopted. My understanding is this building would currently be a step code level 2 in Oak Bay. It's a step above what is currently being asked for. And but you're right, it's in the Greater Victoria region, in the CID, it has become the standard. But there are municipalities, let's say like Langford, that have not adopted it, to my knowledge, yet. So it really varies.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And then I did have a question around under goals on page 6 of the staff report. It talks about climate change and energy. So my question would be, how would deconstruction take place for the current building that is there? And will that fall under the climate change and energy goal?
I'll give that to Ms. Coltman, and you can hand it off to others if you wish.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we would use, there's a company called Unbuilders, and they deconstruct buildings. So it's not a demolition as we've experienced in the past. And they come and they basically take the home apart board by board and salvage anything and everything that's possible to do so, and keep as much as we can out of the landfill. So we would deconstruct.
Thank you. And then I guess another question to the proponent would be, based on the fact that they're looking to put in underground parking, I'm surprised that a geotechnical request has not been put forward already to determine what kind of blasting will have to take place. So can you answer why there's been no geotechnical survey done so far?
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. I'll give it to Ms. Coltman, though you may want to hand it off here to somebody else if you wish. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll get Peter to answer that. Thank you.
Yeah, through the mayor, it's not a requirement of rezoning applications, and it really depends on the developer's appetite for, how deep do you really dive into all these questions. We have enough information that we know that there is good bearing in this location based on what we call a desktop geotechnical study, and that's really without drilling. But we know there will be some rock, and there will be other soil conditions, but we don't know exactly where that rock will be. And it's really throughout Victoria that even in those sites where we do have the benefit of a geotechnical report where drilling has been done, that quite often when excavation actually is going underway, it really varies on a location. Now, this is a fairly small site in the larger picture. So again, I think it's fair to say that some blasting has to be assumed, just because it is Oak Bay, and we've seen that on other sites and even single-family homes. And there are good and safe measures and processes in place that is not really and should not be a concern.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. Is it okay if I do have a few more questions? Is that all right? So my other questions are in regards to the sidewalk. So the sidewalk is going to be expanded from 1.5 meters to 2 meters, I believe it says in the report. And my question is to staff, is that does that new sidewalk, is that paid for by the proponent?
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. Ms. McDougall?
Yes, thank you for that question of clarification. And yes, the frontage improvements are required to be provided by the proponent.
And if I may continue, the reason we ask for that widening of the sidewalk is because there's a new development going in, so it's just a good opportunity to widen the sidewalk at that time. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. It's a great opportunity to make sure that we're projecting for the future needs of the community at that point in time, since the property likely wouldn't get redeveloped probably in our lifetimes.
Thank you. And then so there's something in the report that talks about the removal of 3 parking spots in front of the building, which I'm wondering if that's I believe it's before the ingress and egress of the ramp to go down into the underground parking. But can you clarify that? Because that seems to be a bit of parking to take away from that part of that street. So I'm just wondering if you can clarify that that's exactly what it's for.
Ms. McDougall?
Yeah, perhaps I can speak to this a little bit, and then if our Director of Engineering and Public Works wants to jump in as well, or our Manager of Engineering Services, they can maybe contribute a bit of an engineering perspective. But yes, there are some existing on-street parking stalls that would be removed specifically to help address sightline issues entering and exiting that underground parking facilities. So that's where that's going in terms of a direction. But in terms of the technicalities, I would probably refer to my colleagues for more comment on that.
Thank you. I'll just ask Mr. Haran, or if you want to hand that off to Mr. Rannick, you're welcome to do so. If there's anything you wish to add.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is Dan Haran. I just wanted to clarify to make sure I understand what the question is. So yes, it's confirmed as part of the proposal that there's going to be some on-street parking that is going to be not available anymore. But I'm not sure that what the question, what to answer at the moment for this question. Thank you. So just for some clarification, thanks.
Sure. I think you probably answered the question for confirmation by Councillor Braithwaite.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why there's a need to take away that that parking, because it seems to me that by taking it away, it actually enhances the building, but takes away from the municipality.
Mr. Haran?
Well, at the moment, I'm not able to answer the question actually. So we can either come back with that, or I'm not sure if the proponent has the answer available off the top of their heads at the moment.
Sure, I'll go to Ms. Coltman to see if she has an answer, but also perhaps clarification whether it's just if it's no parking at all, or if it's changing into a loading zone, or what the intention is for the frontage of that property. Ms. Coltman?
If we're talking about the design piece, maybe I'll get Peter to comment on that, please.
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, through the mayor, like, I'm just looking at the site plan and the landscape plan. We do have the access to the underground parking more or less in the same location where currently the driveway access is for the single residence. Now, so that should not remove any future parallel parking on the district's side. And then there is that crosswalk where there's a new, so like, widening of the sidewalk to make that crossing safer. And that's probably removing a stall. And but there should be at least one in front of the building still at the discretion of the district to implement. But just wanted to share that.
My general take on these things when there's a lack of clarity is, well, why don't we just give that back to staff to come back? We're not making decisions here tonight anyway, so we'll get that information cleared up.
It's on page 10 of the staff report.
Okay, so page 10 of the staff report, if we can just have that reviewed to make sure that that's accurate.
Thank you. I'll just ask a couple of questions in regards to the arborist report now. So on the arborist reports, they said that there's a concrete retaining wall that will have to be built, and it'll have an impact on the tree's root zone. And so I'm wondering, in the arborist report, it talks about other methods of footing, and I'm wondering if those other methods of footings have been considered that have been suggested by the arborist.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. We have Ms. Coltman. I'll give it to you to hand off. We have a couple of members of your team here, I think, tonight that might be able to answer the question.
Yes, I'll go to Jeremy, please.
Welcome to the meeting, Mr. Guy.
I can't see my picture, but I'm hoping you guys can. And can you hear me all right?
Yeah. Is it Guy or Guy, your last name?
It's actually Jai.
Oh, Jai. My apologies.
That's quite all right. Yes, the foundation walls for the parkade, I believe, is what you're referring to. And those are going to be blind formed, a little technical term, which means supported on the interior side of the parkade to minimize the intrusion towards the tree. So we've done everything we can in the design of the foundation and the building to minimize impacts to the oak.
Councillor Braithwaite, you've got a puzzled look on your face. We'll let you re-ask the question.
So does that mean that that you're using pad footings or screw piles? I think that's what it says in his report.
No, the building is too much mass for screw piles. But what we've done is to allow for the foundation walls, we've deleted a number of parking spaces to move those walls further away from the tree. And we're able to sustain a sufficient amount of root habitat to support the tree.
I think in the I'll read right from the arborist report. It says the plan shows a concrete retaining wall around the patio and along the east property line. The footings for this wall will have an impact on the tree's root zone, as they will have to go down to bearing soil, thus moving the retainable root zone to the outer edge of the wall. Other methods of construction, such as pad footings or screw piles, may be options for supporting the wall without need for continuous strip footing. It is important to change the area of the retained root zone as little as possible to maintain the health of the tree.
Mr. Jolly, just any additional comments on that?
Can you give me the date of that report, please? Is it a written report, or are you reading notes from a drawing?
It's from December 16th, 2021, and it's on page 32 of the staff report, or of the agenda package.
May I add some clarification to that, please?
Mr. Jolly, connect.
Through the mayor. So there's maybe some confusion. Some of the retaining walls are actually not over the parkade, and they would require then some support. And I think that's where the options come in, where screw piles could be used to support retaining walls in that area, because the other retaining walls for the landscaping between patios and all the soft planting are placed on the parkade down below, so they obviously wouldn't need additional support. But some of the these retaining walls are over soil, and where we then have the option in those root zones to have alternative forms of support.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I have one more question, if I might, and then I'll pass it on. I'm wondering if we're going to have an expectation for a deposit if we wanted to ensure the health of the tree, because from the arborist report, it talks about having to look after that tree for a number of years in the future to ensure that that it stays healthy. And then there's also, out of curiosity, there's a large scaffold limb that's required to be removed at the risk of the health of the tree, and that actually projects into the proposed building envelope. And I'm wondering if that limb is actually being proposed as part of the canopy coverage that we have coming back in the report.
I'm going to go to staff on this one. Ms. McDougall?
Yes, so just to speak to the deposits, typically with development permits, landscape securities are obtained. I would need to double check with our arborist if that would extend to the neighboring parcel and that protections for that Gary oak tree. I think that is a consideration with the arborist department that I would need to confirm and bring that information back to council. And then I'm sorry, daylight savings time is getting me. What was the second part of that question again?
Just that there's a suggestion that, or there's a part of the large scaffold limb is required to be removed off that large tree. And I'm wondering if that limb was actually put into the consideration of the calculation of the tree canopy for this property.
Yes, that is correct. Actually, I have discussed with our arborists, and that tree is currently that limb is currently in the numbers as presented. So we would get additional information from the applicant based on what is going to happen with that limb and bring that back to council.
Thank you. I'll pass it along.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. I have Councillor Green, then Patterson, then Appleton.
Well, my question will be short because Councillor Braithwaite covered all of them but one. No, that's good. I just wanted to ask through you, Your Worship, to either actually to the proponent, in terms of environmental standards, and I realize we mentioned the Step Building Code 3, etc. Was there any consideration given to building lead standard? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I think Mr. Johannek, sorry, I do that occasionally with your name. I apologize. Johannek, could you perhaps answer that question?
Yeah, that's my life. Through the mayor. That's a really good question. So you might remember that previous application, there was mentioning of LEED, and then the step code was introduced, and the step code was introduced because it is much stronger building to a design that is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So it's really, if we want to fight climate change, we have to reduce our emissions, and that's something where LEED was fairly weak. And we kind of consider that in our profession, that's my opinion, already a dinosaur, because LEED was great 15 years ago, really shepherding and bringing forward these ideas that were very holistic on a lot of fronts and a lot of boxes to check. And the industry has done really well adopting a lot of these as standard practices now. And for example, using recycling content or using unbuilders to recycle a structure that's been demolished, or like having green roofs and using stormwater for irrigation, low flow fixtures, LED lighting, all that is more or less standard now. And so I think the shift from LEED to the step code is very meaningful and in a way stronger to fight climate change.
Thank you very much, and that's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I have Councillor Patterson, Appleton, and Zelka.
Thank you, Mayor, and I can certainly say I would like to see something happen on this site that is looking quite forlorn over the last few years. It really is. It does stand out, certainly as compared to the rest of the properties in the street on the avenue. But just a quick follow-up to some of Councillor Braithwaite's questions, and I agree. She's covered most of the questions, so it makes it easier for the rest of us. But I guess the questions that were asked was about the amount of blasting that would be required, and it was explained that investigation work has not all taken place. So I am just wondering then how we can speak with any certainty about the protection of the tree roots as part of this development process if we in fact don't understand the excavation. So how is that determination of protection of the tree roots confirmed without the other piece of the knowledge about the excavation?
Sure, thank you, Councillor Patterson. Mr. Jai, I'm guessing that's probably a question best answered by you as the urban forester.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We actually did some fairly extensive investigation of the site conditions affecting the oak tree. So we went onto the site and dug down, beginning some distance away from the tree and gradually moving towards the tree to determine its empirical root extent as opposed to an estimate, which is what we would typically do. But when things are very constrained, we like to go in, get our hands dirty, and find out. So we excavated down 1.5 meters, which in the soil conditions we found, we didn't find any bedrock. They were good, rich, well-drained soils. And the lens of roots from the trees were all contained within really less than 1 meter. That's what we found. And on our tree plan, the representation, the modeling of the root zone is based on that investigatory work. So there's no guessing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. And if I just might continue, I think the next question probably could be best answered by the architect, just to help me understand, because the report does say that when it does the comparisons to the neighborhood characteristics, that it is characteristic in massing and scale to adjacent buildings. But the lot that is proposed for this building is about 10,500 square feet. The one at 2314 Oak Bay Avenue is 20,132 square feet, and the one at 2340 Oak Bay Avenue is 14,400 square feet. So, although I understand by the report that the building, the height of the building and the scale of the building certainly may be comparable to the other two, but if, just an explanation of then how we determine that the massing on a lot that is substantially smaller than the adjacent lots is characteristic of the neighborhood.
Thank you very much, Councillor Patterson. Mr. Yonkanek, welcome back.
Yeah, through the mayor. I mean, you're right. Like the massing is related to placing a 4-story building to today's standard between 2 4-story buildings of a different era of the 60s and 70s, where we had bigger lots, more land available, and it was built to a smaller density. And I think it would be fair to say if those properties will be redeveloped one day in the future, that they would see a different form of density than we currently experience. And so when we look at the elevation of, for example, Oak Bay Avenue and placing that 4-story building, we feel that that is very much in keeping with today's standards in mind, like ceiling heights and construction assemblies, that this is very much in keeping with that context. Also creating a design that is unique and has sort of like an architectural expression that stands out, but without being let's say a very unusual object between the existing buildings, and also comparing those 2 neighbor buildings. They are of a different architectural expression by itself. So it's really adding another layer of architectural design to this neighborhood. And the site is fairly compact, but we experience that in a lot of infill housing. And the Clive was, it's a fairly small lot as well. And but it has a different context. It does not have the 4-story neighbors like this one does.
Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I agree. The design of the building is quite lovely. Perhaps on a different site, I could see where it would be very appealing to the community. This site is a little unusual for a number of reasons, and perhaps again for the architect, because the building is so massive relative to the area of the lot, and there are planters all around the building. I'm just wondering how, as an architect, you take into consideration servicing of the building, particularly if an emergency happened, because it'll be lovely landscaping all around the building, but how do you actually, in an emergency condition, how do you actually access that building to take care of any emergency that is in it?
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Mr. Yonkanek?
Yeah, through the mayor. I mean, obviously we have to follow the building code in order to make sure that the building is safe and sound, and that we have proper egress. We always require a minimum of 2, of course. And the building code is also very clear on how to provide access for the first responders, for the fire department, and, for example, how much window or how much opening in a wall is allowed. The closer a wall is to a property line, the fewer windows are allowed. All that is part of the design, of course. And in regards to maintenance, we do have, I think, still fairly generous setbacks to Oak Bay Avenue, but also, to the rear. And again, with a lot of other developments in Greater Victoria for infill housing, these setbacks are not unusual at all, and they're appropriate for a story building on a site like this. And I think we have to recognize that we are densifying our cities and we are trying to maximize the land use. No doubt about that. We can't be wasteful with land, but we also have to find that fine line in between. And I think we have done that here. Also in regards to landscaping and the maintenance, there is a path around the building beyond the patios that will allow, let's say, a landscape contractor to do regular maintenance without having to go through the building, for example.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that answer. That's helpful. And the last and probably the most concerning to me, I think, because I walk that area fairly frequently, and it is in an awkward location because there's a bit of the curve in the road there where it comes out of Prospect and cars accelerate just in front of the York building, and the sidewalks. What is proposed in this with the plan that is here looks very good in front of this building, but I would like to see it more in the context of the strip, because you have the double driveways at the York building, you have the double driveways at the other end where traffic goes in and out, and then in this building you have the double ramp system. And I see on the plan, of course, there's the bump out to where the crosswalk is. So there's quite a bit of activity in a very relatively short distance. And with pandemic, our staff, which everybody enjoyed, put in the expansion area of the walkway system. And most of us that frequent that area as pedestrians have been enjoying that immensely because the sidewalk is so narrow in some areas. And perhaps from our staff, we can get some feel from them as to, I know there's been very positive response to the extra sidewalk area. And so this sidewalk will be expanded in front of the building by going closer into the building. But what about the rest of the area? Because I can see where the crosswalk bumps out. You're going to have some sightline obstruction, and then you've got the entrance to the underground. I don't know what the slope exactly of the elevation of the drive is, but if a car is coming up and going to exit, and again, staff can maybe speak to this, I am making the assumption that traffic will be allowed only to turn in one direction out of this parking garage. But there's just so much activity. You've got the bus stop, you've got the crosswalk, you've got this two-way driveway, and then you've got driveways the other side, and a very narrow pedestrian sidewalk both sides of this building. So how will it all flow? I mean, it's great that this is one strip, but I'm trying to find how our staff have looked at the transportation, pedestrian aspects of this, and viewed the safety, the sight lines, whether or not extra bump out will be provided for the rest of Oak Bay Avenue post-pandemic. So just a better indication of what we plan for the future of that strip.
Sure, thank you. And I want to not put too much on the applicant on fixing our entire strip. We have village area plans and things coming up. But I may just turn to Mr. Horan if you can speak to municipal standards for that strip and looking at those sort of transportation questions more broadly, Mr. Horan.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'll do my best. It's an excellent question. It's a very broad question, which is difficult to pull together all the information coherently. So I'll do my best because there's a lot there. I think the fundamental thing to start with is to say, when it comes to a rezoning application like this, we look at the impact of the proposal on the area around the proposed development, but the parts that we're allowed to direct changes that make sense from municipal standards is from property line to property line, and that's where the width of the sidewalk in that area where we can say that's the standard, that's the sidewalk that the developer has to put in that place. I think Councillor Patterson is correct. In terms of the observation that the COVID-19 changes that we made in terms of removing parking along that stretch temporarily anyway, and putting in the ballers to have a quick expanded sidewalk area has been, the observations is a lot of folks have benefited from that expanded area, and that just kind of reinforces what we think is going to happen, which is a design standard of a minimum 2-meter sidewalk, at least for that stretch of Oak Bay Avenue through the village. But the final guidance on things like that is going to come out of the pedestrian sidewalk master plan work that's ongoing at the moment and throughout the rest of this year. But there are places in town where we have known that the sidewalk needs to be 2 meters and not less, and these are high traffic in terms of feet areas, and this is one of those areas, which is why we've made the requirement here from the perspective of the crosswalk that's meant to be there. The bump out is there to calm traffic and to make the crossing distance for pedestrians shorter, because it is quite a wide stretch of Oak Bay Ave, and the idea there is to make it safer for people on foot to cross as well. I'm not sure if that covers all the answers. Happy to do a follow-up if I missed anything. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Horan. Councillor Patterson?
Yes, no, thank you. I really appreciate that, Mr. Horan. It's because it is quite a busy little piece of pedestrian area, and certainly everybody has enjoyed the extra space, so it's nice. And I did, in fact, complete the pedestrian survey, so I hope you get good information on the survey to help with this. And so, but I think that's a very important piece of this stretch, and how this building will actually fit in a way that is safe for the neighborhood. So thank you for that information.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. We're going to Councillor Appleton and Zelka.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm pretty sure this is a question for staff. It's kind of just picking up on this idea of the RM zonings and the CD zone that's proposed here. I guess it's safe to say if we take a look at the various different classifications of multi-unit zoning that we have in the current zoning bylaw, this lot's not adequate size to fit any of them. So it's not going to fit precisely within any RM zoning. So it's going to be a CD zone of some description with some specification, no matter what, if this is to be a multi-unit development on the lot, which is what the OCP calls for. Is that correct? I mean, we're pretty much in a situation where we have to have some variety of CD zoning to redevelop a multi-unit on this lot.
Sure. Thank you. Ms. McDougall?
Yes, that is an excellent point, and yes, that's correct. It would require a site-specific zone based on the size of the parcel. A rezoning is required in order to meet the minimum lot size and to achieve the density specifically proposed for the site. And lot coverage is not something that could be varied. So in any case, if there's any proposal to increase density on the site, a zoning is required.
Go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So that's a good segue into my next question, which is to say, I note in the presentation and in the staff materials, there was a notation made that the buildings to the east and west, the multi-unit buildings to the east and west, have about 35% lot coverage, and then in addition to that, have about 40% of the lot covered by parking. So do I get that accurately, that if we look at sort of impervious coverage or non-vegetated coverage of those lots, that we're looking at 70% or north of 70% of those lots are covered in that way? Do I get that right?
Ms. McDougall?
Yes, that is correct. You're looking at a greater overall coverage, and that's one of the site-specific considerations that's really embedded with the CD zone, where we're recognizing that because the parking is going underground, you're reducing some of the coverage on the property that way. negotiating some increase in height to kind of accommodate that and reflect that gentle negotiation there.
Go ahead.
No, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make that notation that the clear trade-off between lot coverage and parking necessity, that the historical, very reflecting on the change in design between a modern building and where the parking goes, a historical building which may be smaller in massing but is also covering a lot of the lot. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Councillor Zelka, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chair. And my first few questions are probably to staff to start with. Excellent presentation. I very much appreciate the rather thorough report and making reference, of course, to existing policies and reports we have within Oak Bay and trying to tie it all together. Very much appreciate the effort. But I did have a few questions that came up for me, so if you don't mind, I'll just jump in. At one point in the presentation, you mentioned that guideline number 8 was not met, but I didn't quite catch which was guideline number 8 and what was that referring to? I wasn't sure if it was in the RGS objectives or if it was something else. Sure. But I was wondering if staff could just help me understand what that meant.
Sure. Of course, yeah. Councillor Zelka, go ahead, Ms. McDougall.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a wonderful question. So in the multi-unit development permit area, under the site and building planning guidelines, they're number 8, as listed on page 63 of the agenda package. It states, incorporate planted roofs and rooftop gardens on buildings for use by residents, with care taken in design to minimize the impact on privacy of neighbors. So in this instance, the rooftop garden that was initially proposed in previous design iterations has been removed, specifically to increase some of the privacy, or increase addressing privacy concerns onto the adjacent properties. And that's why we highlighted in the report that is one of the guidelines that is not met. But from staff's perspective, there is a fair trade-off being made there for why that's not being met.
Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you. That's helpful to get that clarification. Through the chair, possibly to the proponent, was there any suggestion to maybe replace it with a green roof to potentially help with the heat issues that may result in our hot summers? Just a question about whether that was considered or whether it could be considered.
Sure. Mr. Yankonek, is that what is the roof design and is that possible?
Yeah, through the mayor. Green roofs over wood structures have an issue with insurance providers. We love to do green roofs. If it's a rooftop deck where, that the previous design we had planters for garden plots that would basically float over the roofing membrane, those are possible and supported, but if it's a full-on green roof, that's very different. And it's so in short answer, there's no green roof because it's not accessible, it's not visible, and it poses issues with insurances for the future strata. Unfortunately, that industry has to fix that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you for the clarification on that. I much appreciate it, and that answered sort of one of my sort of overriding questions in that area. Back to possibly to staff. Our regional growth strategy, I guess, we policy objectives that we in some ways committed to with the CRD, under in particular objective number 3, improve housing affordability. I make reference to that, and I also make reference to the housing needs report process that we completed in 2019. And item number 1, housing unaffordability is an issue in Oak Bay today, and it goes into gory detail for anyone who wishes to go back to that housing needs report, amongst other things. So the question through to staff is, how does this 14 market rents, a market condo strata property in any way help with our improving housing affordability, please?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent question, and certainly probably top of mind for a lot of people in this community, and people probably looking to this community for places to live. But it's not a subsidized project, so it's not going to provide rental units to people with constrained incomes. It's a market based development meant to provide condominium units. And in terms of affordability, it's about creating options for the community. So increasing the number of multifamily, smaller units, mid-range multifamily units in terms of diversifying what people can move to from a different place, or they can downsize from a single family home and possibly save some money in terms of their housing costs there. It's not a perfect model, but it's about creating options for the community that don't necessarily currently exist.
Thank you. If I may continue. Appreciate that. And I do also appreciate, the bind that we sometimes find ourselves in. We can really only respond to those proposals that come towards us. We can set up a policy desires. We can set up OCPs that encourage developments of what we're looking for. For example, something in the missing middle housing area, for example. And then we would hope that developers would come forward with those proposals. And I know one of the questions we're looking at today potentially is, does this proposal have merit? So really, we only have sort of a yes or a no. We don't really have a middle. And I wish we had a middle perspective, because there's some aspects of this proposal that actually are quite wonderful. I do have some concerns, however, with respect to the package deal as to whether it has merit with respect to some of the proposals, some of the policy objectives, some of our commitments, and some of what we've laid down in the official community plan. I wish we had a different process to be able to deal with this, other than maybe generally offer suggestions if we happen to vote this down for what may come forward in the future. So my next question then would be with respect to this proposal in terms of how it's different from the last time we saw this at council. It appears to me the major change, and I guess this may be through to the proponent potentially, the major change is really underground with respect to the root area for the sentinel tree, the Gary Oak in the property next door. It appears most of the change, in fact, almost exclusively it appears, is just having to do with that root zone for the tree. I didn't notice any other real changes. The back corner was off for sun in the back, and a whole bunch of other things that had been adjusted from what was affectionately referred to as Quest 2 versus this one being Quest 3. So let me stop talking, and maybe the proponent could lay it out in black and white. Thank you.
Yeah, why don't we allow them, so Ms. Coltman, why don't you take the opportunity just to go over the different, the changes here that are in this application from the last time it was seen by council and the public.
Thank you, through the mayor. I will start, and then Peter can enhance the other pieces. Yes, the major change is definitely an underground to save the tree. That was really why the application was sent back last time. Up until that point, we had made many changes in terms of the height and the rooftop gardens and the privacy, reducing to 14 units, bringing in the setbacks. There's quite a list of changes that were made. And when we presented that proposal, council was very concerned really about the tree. And that's what we went away to solve. And that's why it came back with the change underground. And we've added the bike parking for that. So Peter, you can maybe speak a bit more to those other changes.
I mean, through the mayor, I think, Kim, you listed it all, like at the advisory design panel, the only, let's say, request and suggestion came to increase the bike parking so that there is at least one bike parking stall for each unit. And that was, I think, a really good, valid point. So we increased that. But the big change really is the tree, and to accommodate the design to keep the tree, because that was the biggest concern at the last meeting from the community, and particularly from the York House neighbors, and because that tree is a community asset. Hence we're back. I mean, and even after 9 years, it's more appropriate than ever before. But it's better because we can keep the tree now, and we have adjusted the design slightly, but only to respond as much as we can. And also, just like to remind everyone of the original design and the purpose of the design is to provide housing for those who are currently in a single-family home in Oak Bay and are just at an age where that has become too much of a burden. They like to downsize, like to stay in the community, and where do you go? So these units are slightly larger than other developments, maybe in, let's say, Victoria or Saanich, and they really are designed for that aging in place. And so it is not affordable because you have to sell a multi-million-dollar home, or because that's what these homes are going for in Oak Bay, and put money aside for retirement and buy a unit here and stay in the community. So it is kind of the missing middle, but it's kind of like an Oak Bay model, let's say. And so I thought it was a really good question by Councillor Zelker. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zelka, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Very much appreciate it. And thank you so much for the information provided. This is always very helpful to sort of hear some of these ideas fleshed out. I did hear a few other concerns raised other than just the tree, so I'll just leave it at that for now. But I did want to ask, did the proponent or the proponent consider possibly looking at some aspect? One of the things that I'm hoping that we can continue to flesh out in our policies is, for example, smart growth aspects. And one of the elements of smart growth is not just missing middle and not some of the wonderful things that have already come through in many of our policies, but also looking at mixed use and not really creating a single use, single demographic, single socioeconomic type building, which this one appears to represent as being something that is really more future oriented. So I did want to ask, did the proponent possibly consider something in the area of mixed use, having to do with smart growth principles, and possibly consider a smaller building, since I did hear major concerns about approximately 52% lot coverage and an FAR of 1.87 being, and of course the height of the building being, I think the terms I heard mentioned out loud were excessive, to use polite versions of the words.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Zelka. And I'm not sure, Ms. Coltman, I'll go to you and you can hand it off again if you see.
Okay, thank you, through the mayor. I was trying to jot down all those questions, so
I know.
might have to remind me a few of them.
So mixed use was the first part of that question.
In terms of the mixed use model and so on, I'm wondering if you're thinking of commercial residential or different sizes of units. I'm not really clear what you mean by that.
If I may, mixed socioeconomic.
Oh, I see, like some affordable units and so on. I think Caitlin answered that quite well previously, and I'll just reiterate. We're looking at a housing spectrum, and one property can't be all things to all people. And I think when we look at people downsizing, as we've said before, this gives them an opportunity to go into a home, and it leaves their perhaps bigger property available for somebody else to come into. And maybe that's going to be where you find your mid-block townhomes, your garden suites, your suites and so on within the homes there. So this is on that continuum of creating and trying to enhance the affordability across the spectrum. In terms of the other concerns of FAR and so on, I think we've demonstrated that 1.87 is very much in keeping with what's gone on in Oak Bay. With Bowker Creek, I think, was 2.8, and Shannon Oaks is 1.9. The lot coverage was brought up by one of the councillors. The buildings adjacent to us are technically 70% coverage with their surface parking, which was how things were built back in the 50s and 60s and so on. And we now have that opportunity to go underground to make this more of a 50% type or 52%. I don't have it right in front of me. So I think those are addressed with how we build today and the way that we're using the properties and trying to do that infill in a sensitive but futuristic way. There will be nothing else built on this property for another 75 years or more, right? So we have to make use of what we have. Peter, do you have something?
Yeah, just like to add to that, because I think it's a really good question, and it is a matter of scale. But this is a fairly small development, like 14 units. This is not a big building in order to check all the boxes. And I'm sure that you're familiar with other municipalities' requirements. And just as an example, the City of Victoria has their affordable housing policy, where a proposed building with 50 or more units, has to provide affordable housing within that building. And you need that minimum mass and scale of a project in order to be able to do that. Here we have a custom strata building with 14 custom homes in a prime location with a highly custom foundation work to save the tree. We have underground parking because no one really wants to see cars anymore, and it's not the right use to use at grade valuable land for storing cars. But all that comes at an expense, of course. And then there's also the time, the duration of this application. Construction costs in this market have probably doubled. So all that is adding further fuel to the issue of delivering housing, providing options and alternatives, and makes it even harder to provide that kind of mix of housing that is very valid, but it requires a certain scale to really deliver on that, or subsidies.
Thank you for that, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. I very much appreciate the feedback on the rather hard question I gave you. It's too bad that with respect to the model that we have to operate under with respect to Local Government Act and the Community Charter, that we can't throw out suggestions such as maybe if only Large & Co could take the building next door under its wing and possibly do something maybe with the co-op next door and somehow factor in or somehow bring in a socioeconomic aspect that would make this somehow meet our OCP objectives. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But of course, our models don't allow that, but corporations, of course, can do things on their own. So I did also want to ask, and this question actually may be back to staff, if I may. There was reference to road dedication of 20 meters. I'm not familiar with what that is. If staff could possibly help me, what we've got to do some 20-meter road dedication thing, please.
Sure, thank you. Ms. McDougall?
Yes, absolutely. Road dedication is required for basic specifications set out for certain types of road. And I believe this road is designated as a collector, which has a 20 meter requirement. So therefore, some portion of the property along the frontage is being essentially contributed to Oak Bay to meet that classification. Now the road is not being constructed to that width. The sidewalk is being constructed in that area, but it is there essentially for future use considerations.
That's very helpful, and I presume it's 20 meters from the center line.
Ms. McDougall, do you know, is that the road width?
I believe that is correct.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I look forward to any adjustments that come through for the Oaks, with seeing how close it is and probably in the middle of the road at that point. But anyway, that's a different proposal. So I did want to share a couple of things that I found very, very positive in this proposal. The travel accommodation has continued to be outlawed in the housing agreement, and all of housing agreements that we put forward recently, and this one aligns with that as well. So no Airbnbs. Thank you very much for putting that in the housing agreement. And but with respect to that, a question first for the chair through to staff. How would we help I know the strata needs to enforce it within their bylaws, but how do we enforce it on the strata?
Sure, Ms. McDougall?
Yeah, thank you. So with any covenant, it's essentially enforceable through the courts. So if there was to be an issue determined through either inspection or through some sort of complaint that is provided to the district, then it's enforceable through that process.
Excellent. Very much appreciate that. Thank you very much. I have to agree with some of my colleagues. They did find the design attractive, although from my perspective, it did appear to be rather high and looming over the street. But it did still, in the end, find the rather attractive. So thank you very much for bringing the proposal forward, and I look forward to the further discussions from my council colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. Everybody's had a chance to ask questions. I think they've all largely been addressed. I'm going to just go back to the proponent with a couple of sort of general pieces. We talked a little bit about the setbacks on this building changing. Could I just get my clarification? Looking at the drawings, it looks like they're reasonably in alignment with other buildings, but can you just speak to the setbacks, the front and the side and back setbacks, where they are, what changes have been made, and any feelings of what's been achieved through the changes that have come forward? And probably go through that one to you, Mr. Jakenecht.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. I mean, it's of course in the staff report as well, and we do have the setback dimensions which are from the property line to the closest structure, for example, a balcony, and then we have further setbacks to the building facade. But along Oak Bay Avenue, we have a setback right now of, do you prefer feet or metric? Doesn't matter.
I'm not so much asking for the raw numbers, but just sort of how it sits in context to the other buildings around.
Oh, sorry. Like
what
I thought
changes
you
have been made to
okay.
and what those changes have accomplished.
I mean, the context, the building is closer to Oak Bay Avenue than it's to neighbors. I mean, that's to be recognized. And we do have that lobby addressing Oak Bay Avenue, a clear sense of entrance. And then, of course, the landscaping and the bench. I really compare that very much to the Clive, that is also closer to Oak Bay Avenue, but has these patios, and it's a different engagement because it is closer to the, let's say, commercial part of the avenue. So the building is a little bit closer to the street, and addresses it through layering of the balconies, not having this one sheer wall, and also the landscaping in front, and then stepping around the corners. And for the roof, the same, that we have that peak towards the Gary Oak. And then in the rear, I mean, we have removed the one top unit to address some of the concerns on light, a natural light to the neighbor. And the setbacks from the original design, they were all tucked in just at least a foot to address some of the concerns on setback and how it's presenting itself to the neighbors.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think what I've heard from the previous iterations, and again now, I think we're, the concerns are the tree and then massing. I think those are sort of the common concerns that are always raised with new buildings. And I appreciate you touching on those setbacks and also the design aspects that are designed in there. I think all my questions around the tree protection have been answered. So the only other outstanding one I have is just, we're seeing a pretty remarkable shift of late to electric bikes, and I appreciate that you've added some bike parking in there, but I'm curious if there's room in there for charging, but also a lot of newer bikes are coming with sort of cargo style bikes and other things that don't fit in traditional bike storage, and wonder if there's, I guess if not now, is the design of the building flexible enough to allow for those changes to happen over the, as you talk about 75 years of the building and changes in transportation over that time?
Yeah, I'm happy to respond to that. I mean, we are limited in space on the ground floor and underground. I mean, we removed, as you know, parking. We now really maxed out on the available space without adding further density. Even adding those few bike stalls actually bumped up the FSR slightly, just by decibel, but it just did increase it by a fraction. And all those 14 bike stalls will have availability for chargers. So I mean, just recognizing that potentially all 14 might be electric bikes. And that's pretty much in line with also providing EV chargers for all the 14 underground parking stalls. There might be opportunity to utilize some of the space above each stall for example, maybe a pulley hanging a bike, but I think that's really something for the owners and the strata to further optimize. And we really like, if we add more area, then we impede on setbacks further, and we don't really want to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hyonknek. I appreciate those answers. And I'll just leave with a comment on this as well. I do appreciate that little cutout made at the back left corner of the building to provide light. I know that was done at the Clive as well to good effect, to make sure that the buildings in behind had adequate light during the course of the year, and incredibly important, I think, in terms of the good neighbor side of things. So I appreciate that change that came forward. I'm going back to this body here now. If there are any other questions of council or staff? Sorry, Councillor Ney, your hand is showing as raised here. I know it's probably a hangover from hitting *9 earlier. It's hard to lower it again. It's gone now. Okay. So no request for talking or questions, additional questions. Everybody's had a chance to ask questions to this point. Are there any follow-up or clarification questions, comments that people wish to make? We have the options laid out in front of us here, whether we see it has enough merit to go and get public input on this. If it wants to be sent back for further clarification or direction, then all those options are available. Go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
So if...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, but before you go, is it to be a motion or before we get to a motion, sorry, Councillor Ney, your hand popped up for a second there. Did you want to add any questions before we go to motions?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just one final question for me, and I was just trying to find it in the documents here. But could we just, through you, Mayor, ask the staff or the applicant? No, it's probably a question to staff. Tell us the actual height of the two buildings on the east and west of the proposed building here, their actual height and this height. I just wanted to understand the height variation that's going on, and then to help me understand the context of these buildings on the site.
Sure, thank you, Councillor Ney. I think that's always helpful to think of that context. Mr. Hyonknek, I don't know if you have that at hand, but can you speak to the total height of the building on either side of this building in relation to the building?
Through the mayor, happy to do that. We do have, I'm just looking for the actual numbers, but we do have an elevation of the proposal with the two neighbor buildings. So you can see like the relation of the various heights. Also recognizing that Oak Bay Avenue is sloping. So the York House neighbors are lower than the neighbor towards the west, but I actually don't have the numbers here, but if we can maybe refer to that drawing, which is the south elevation.
What page is that on?
The whole page 28, I'm having a bit of an issue scrolling through my, yeah, 27, 28.
Thank you.
Maybe Caitlin, I don't know if you could share your screen from the report. I believe you had that elevation as well.
I am just scrolling here. Peter, if you happen to have any renderings up in front of you, you should also be able to share your screen as well, but I'm just scrolling.
Mr. Huon, do you have a sense of the difference in height? Because we can see the sort of the relative height not being significantly different than the western one, but notably higher than the one to the east.
towards York House, it's almost a floor. It's about a floor lower than the proposal. That's so like a visual from the elevation. So it's approximately maybe 14 feet from the peak.
Right. And that is the high peak point as well on that side.
That's a high, yeah.
Taller, yes.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, could you have that clarified, please? I didn't quite understand that.
Sure. Mr. Yonkanek, do you want to?
If I can share my screen, then.
I think unfortunately Councillor Ney is on phone, so she actually can't see the.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, like if we can maybe clarify. So it's about 14 feet higher than the York house neighbors.
And in relation to the one to the west, it's what difference?
Oh, that's in relation to the proposal.
No, she's asking.
Sorry, okay, so the York is 14, compared to the York property, which is to the east.
Correct.
The proposed property is 14 feet higher.
Correct,
And
approximately.
the property to the west is, what is the difference in height of the proposed building and the building to the west of the proposed building?
That's maybe 5 feet lower.
So when you said the 14 feet, that's actual feet. That's not also taken into account the elevation that goes down for the York
Correct.
property.
No,
correct?
that's the actual difference between the heights of the roofs.
Okay, thank you.
But I mean, we're happy to provide that in more accurate numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But for visualization, to everybody else is listening and not seeing, there's a slope on the roof that is higher on the eastern side, and that height is about 14 feet higher than the building to the east. Because the ground slopes, the building to the west is only about 5 feet lower than the building, than that roof height on the western side. If that's for that
Okay,
clarification.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, that's not how I understood that. Sorry, I may have misunderstood it. In terms of actual feet, the building to the west of the proposed building is 5 feet lower than the proposed building, but that's not taking into account the grade difference, which is higher for the building of the west. We're talking actual numbers, correct?
Yes, that's actual difference without grading in mind. It's the actual height difference between the buildings.
So because it's higher, I don't know how many feet higher, it's going to look more level, presumably.
Yeah, like from a perspective view, that will appear, well, yes, about level with the west neighbor. But there will be a height difference, visible height difference between the York House building and the proposed building.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
The extent of your questions, Councillor Name?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions, Councillor Zelka?
Are you open to a motion?
Yeah, Councillor Braithwaite had indicated she was going to give a motion. I interrupted her to go to the question, so I'll go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you, and I'll explain my motion after, if it's seconded. I would make a motion to deny the application.
Okay, go ahead. You have the
Thank you.
floor.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I would agree. We do need housing in Oak Bay, and the design of this building is quite lovely. I look at the lot though, and I look at some of the information that we've received, and it looks at the gross floor area to size of lot, and the Quest 3, as we'll call this one, is so much bigger and than any of the other buildings around it. And even when I look at the picture on page 14 of the staff report, and I look at the buildings to the east and to the west, the building to the west is a much bigger lot and a longer building, but it doesn't take up as much of the lot that it seems. And the one to the east is a much bigger lot again, and the Quest 3 is 14 feet taller, we've just found out. I wish that this building had been made smaller. I was sitting around the table the last time this came to council, and yes, I would agree that there was a lot of talk about the tree, but that wasn't the only reason that this was denied the last time it came. It was denied because of the massing and the lot coverage, along with the tree. So the tree had something to do with it, but I don't think it was as much as what has been talked about tonight. I think we had other reasons for denying it. So I agree that we need housing. However, we really need to consider how the housing fits into the community. And so I always go back to, as council, our role as council is to make those decisions to ensure that we do what's best for the community and also what's fitting into the OCP objectives. So that's not to allow something as large, in my humble opinion, something as large as this to come into the community and kind of, I don't know, set a precedent, I think, for whatever else might want to come to the community as well. So I would love to see it smaller, a little bit less lot coverage. I really feel that this lot is really only 2 times bigger than that lot that my house is on. My house is on a 50 by 115 lot, and I can't imagine putting a building this big on two of my lots. So it just seems to me to be too much for this particular location. And I hope that the proponent comes back with something. It would be nice to see like 3 townhouses or something like that on this lot. I think that would fit in really well, or a scaled down version of this building. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Braithwaite. I have Councillor Zelka, Nay, and then Green.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'd have to echo everything that Councillor Braithwaite said. And I appreciate the way it was said. The social benefits. I always having to sort of weigh what proponents ask for with respect to what not just what will the social fabric of Oak Bay, the social contract sort of handle, but what are the benefits to the members of Oak Bay? So I would like to see some sort of a proposal come back. I would definitely like to see more benefits for the citizens of Oak Bay. If anything could possibly be arranged. I can't go into details because we're not allowed to, but I would hope that the proponent could hear that potentially more might be needed. And I appreciate the CAC contributions that's being recommended, and I do acknowledge that. But there are other aspects of our policies that I feel were not addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Zelka. I have Councillor Nay, and then Green, and then Appleton. Go ahead, Councillor Nay. You're live.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a challenging property for us to reconcile on this property. It is an infill piece, and it is an anomaly of a piece of property. It's kind of an orphaned single-family property that's kind of stuck in the middle of some multi-unit residential zoning. So it is unusual, but I have to say I agree with the other councillors. Architecturally, I'm very attracted to this property. I think it's beautifully laid out. It's beautifully designed. I do note that both our ACP and the APC have thought this was a good project for different reasons. So they've supported, besides in addition to the staff support for this project, it complies with all the OCP issues that have been described in the report. In terms of need, I find this is a kind of property that is in high demand in Oak Bay. And it was specifically articulated in our OCP that people in this community are looking for housing options. And I've talked with many, many people in this community who would look for a more modern kind of a non-single family residential property, a condo type property, to live in, that's where they can scale down out of their $1.52 million home into a condo and not have all the yard work and to reduce expenses. So it's not affordable housing, but it is kind of missing middle housing so that people in our community can remain in our community when their single family property becomes too onerous or impractical for them to continue living in this community, and allows them to continue living in this community. And I think this is a good location for this this particular kind of property. When I look at the height issue, it's kind of interesting because if we were to ask this proponent to make the height of the York property, well then it would be the property to the west of the proposed property would then be 10 feet higher than the new property. And then that would look out of scale. So you've got, 14 feet difference with the proposed property with the York property, but then that would make, if it's 5, then the York property is, then the one to the west is not 9 feet or 10 feet difference from the York property. So either way, somehow you're going to get these variations in property. And this has gone up, higher than either of these two properties, but not in my view, it's not extraordinary. I think it is a good use of the land here. So I guess I'm not going to be able to support. I'm not going to support this motion forward. I think it's unfortunate if this proposal doesn't go forward. I know I would like to see it go to public hearing because the letters that I've received that I've read here are primarily people who are close by this property. And I would like to hear from residents in other parts of our community for whom they would see this a very viable option to be able to continue living in this community rather than move out of the community as they consider downsizing. So, let me see. Yeah, all the positive features of this have already been articulated in the staff report. I think it's a very fine building. I think the proponents have done everything and more of what we have asked them to do to accommodate concerns that were expressed previously. And so I think it would be unfortunate if this was not gone at least to public hearing to hear from the larger community. So I won't be supporting the motion as it stands. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nay. I have Councillor Green, Appleton, and then
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to my colleagues. First of all, thank you to our staff from Building and Planning who produced a very comprehensive report. I was not here in 2017 when this came forward the last time, so the information was very helpful. I also appreciate the proponent appearing tonight, answering all of the questions. And I will be supporting this motion, and I have thought about this, and it is a struggle. First of all, it's a very attractive building. It is well thought out. There are a number of elements and features that are very positive. But here are the issues for me at this point. The first is about logistics, and I hope you don't mind. I'm going to make a few comments because I haven't seen it before this. I haven't seen it at this table before.
so for the record, I actually appreciate if people are voting in favor of this motion. It's worth hearing why, because I think we need to give as clear some understanding to the proponent as possible.
The first issue, and you may have, I think some of my colleagues have touched on these issues before, but one is logistics, the access and egress to the property. Oak Bay Avenue is, as the report identifies, it's a collector road running east and west, very busy corridor. There is a challenging traffic junction located at a curve where Newport transitions to Oak Bay Avenue. There are turn lanes, yield sign, and a small island. There is also a crosswalk nearby, and the streets York, Prospect, St. David, and St. Patrick all form exit entry points into and off of Oak Bay Avenue, and there's a bus stop. This is a complex traffic area. The proposed egress and access driveway for the Quest, given above, and those previous points about the complexity of the traffic site, the sight lines are difficult. And it's true, I think one of my colleagues said that there is quite a bit of speeding in that area. And now we have the added complexity of the widened sidewalks for COVID. The service vehicles will also be mixing with residential vehicles on a very narrow driveway. And the loss of street parking, while it has been not there during COVID, long term, how will that impact the adjacent neighbor multifamily buildings? In terms of lot size and the environment and green space, this small R5 lot means massing and footprint lot line to lot line, and you can see that from the design. And in fact, the staff report identifies that all vegetation will be removed. Tree canopies, while consistent with Oak Bay requirements, will not be realized and enjoyed until planted trees mature, quote unquote. That will be decades away. Loss of 2 protected trees at a time when we are in climate change is a concern to me. And we did talk about the lead standard, and thank you to the proponent for answering that question. I am also very concerned about the blasting impacts potentially on adjacent neighbors to the north, east, and west, on the potential for risk of damage to structural integrity of houses and the 2 multifamily dwellings. I'm also very concerned about noise of the excavation, the waste that will be trucked out of that site, the air quality during blasting and excavation of the underground parking, and concerns around the potential tree damage that may or may not occur. And finally, on the municipal services, the report indicates that there is no current assessment of infrastructure, site servicing, and engineering details until after the application is accepted. And I think it would be helpful to me to know what the infrastructure details are on that site for infrastructure servicing. And very quickly, in terms of housing and affordability, I would like to point out that last year, between June and July of 2021, rent increases in the Greater Victoria region rose by 8.7%. And the average one-bedroom apartment ranged from $1,900 to $2,300 a month. Something missing for me here is the potential for some below market regulated renting. And I say regulated because I see in the housing agreement there is a reference to travel accommodation, which I I assume it includes Airbnb and VRBOs. So in that rental mix, that perhaps there be some consideration of a percentage of below market rent. And in terms of pricing, yes, I agree with other councillors that this does not address the missing middle in terms of middle income working families. And frankly, it's interesting to me when we say that the demographic that this proponent is building for, in terms of the future, most of the concerns and most of the criticism and the feedback I'm getting from residents, that's the target group. So the target group that have been referred to, there are many comments, and we've received a lot of commentary. Many of them are not supportive of this particular development. So I think that basically addresses my comments. And there was a comment that this is not a big building, but this is not a big lot either. And I am very concerned about shoehorning this into a space like that. It really, I think, cries out for duplexes, for low-rise townhouses. I think there are other creative options for housing that could be built on this particular lot. And you're right, I think Councillor Nave mentioned that it is a bit of an orphan. I agree. But honestly, I think we have to listen to the community at this stage. And the community I've heard from, the majority, are not supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Have Councillor Appleton and Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Speaking very much, speaking in opposition to the motion on the table. We are at a juncture as a community where, in my view, we need to cast ourselves very carefully in thought towards where the housing that is so desperately required in the region is going to come from. We have placed a priority in the OCP on building and diversifying housing. We have a council priority of providing a diversity of housing options. The housing environment has changed significantly, even since 2017, since this proposal was first brought forward. So, in my view, does this specific proposal abut very heavily in terms of the upward limits of what might be possible on the lot? I believe that it does. Do I still have some abiding concerns about the design and the massing and some of the concerns that have been raised by the public? I do have those concerns. But I do reflect on both the advisory design panel and the advisory planning commission, citizen committees that we have charged with reviewing these types of things for their design and for their concordance with the OCP. Both of those recommended approval of this. There has been some response by the developer to respond to some of the community's concerns, most significantly the tree, and also to reduce somewhat the massing. I believe that there's some room to work with that. And so at this juncture, we're talking about a lot that is on Oak Bay Avenue that is within the boundaries of the OCP for multi-unit redevelopment. I believe that at this juncture, there is extensive concordance with the OCP and the targets and the objectives of the OCP, and I see no reason why this should not, at minimum, go to the public hearing to hear from the public on this. I will note that we have received commentary on this particular agenda item. It has not gone to public hearing. It has come before council once before. We have not had an opportunity as a community to have a public hearing on this particular property. And I would have liked to have seen that happen. So for those reasons, I see us at a point where if we say that we are going to enable the construction of housing, any different housing option, we can debate the merits of affordable versus affordable and what may constitute affordable versus affordable. Very little free market housing in this current market is affordable by anybody's stretch of the imagination. So we now need to decide whether or not we are prepared to look at housing options. We have only pursued a handful of housing options over the past several years, and I would like to see us commit to doing that. So for that reason, I would have liked to see this gone to public hearing. I'm not in favor of the motion on the table. Thank you, Your Worship.
All right, thank you, Councillor Appleton. If this motion fails, then we'll have that opportunity to consider that as a motion piece. Councillor Patterson, you're up next.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I listened very carefully to Councillor Appleton's words, and I do appreciate what he has to say, but I will support this motion as it is presented. I think that in considering it, this lot is it is, as was mentioned before, it's kind of an orphan lot. And ideally for the future, it would be good to add it to one of the other properties so that it would be have greater options for development. But what I would like to consider or have considered is certainly more consideration of the transportation safety along that piece of the corridor. And I don't think that having transportation and engineering details after approval of a permit is really allows for enough consideration of the decision in advance of getting to that. And I think this is a very unique traffic situation in the district of Oak Bay. I see this as a perfect example of a lot where perhaps we can do that missing middle housing for the district of Oak Bay that we're considering right now in our housing plan, and perhaps then not. We heard the architect speak to the future, and the two adjacent lots in the future might go, and probably would go, to greater massing of those buildings. But what I would hope to see in the future is also some varied characteristics of a neighborhood, so that we don't have a line of buildings all the same height, all coming to the sidewalk line, but we do get a better mixture of variety of the forms of housing that will create the variety that we see in Oak Bay today. And I think that is exactly why people do like it here. There's a variety of housing options. So yes, the Clive looks good, and this is a lovely design for the building. But then as the future of Oak Bay, where do we go? I also think that I'd like to see I would consider something with less parking, so that it put less vehicles in and out of a building, or perhaps instead of having to go so far down for parking, again, think more of the future in how you could come up with a type of a building so that if the parking wasn't needed in the future, you can actually use that space, that it's not all below grade, that there's opportunities for it in the future. So I think there's probably a smaller building with not so deep in the ground, and future opportunities that will allow it to harmonize more with the district in a way, and not end up with a line of buildings all the same height, all coming to the sidewalk, and just maxing out the density for the sake of density itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. You raised a point that I just want to get a bit of clarification on from staff. So if Mr. Horan, if you're still available, I saw the ingress egress pieces of this as being a little separate from the design pieces, because anything that goes in there is going to have those issues and be dealt with. Can you just speak to where that sits in our decision making piece? Is that normally in front of us on these sorts of things, or should be something specific that we should be asking for to clarify some of those transportation pieces?
Yes, thanks you for the question, Your Worship. There's just a couple of comments that have been made in the last 20 minutes or so that concern me a little bit, and I just wanted to offer some clarification. There's concerns raised about ingress and egress and transportation and safety, and I just wanted to mention that the engineering services staff in helping put the report together for council's consideration tonight to have this development process go forward. We look at the whole spectrum of engineering requirements, including transportation. And so because of that, there are some concerns. There's things that we need to do, such as the crosswalk and some other aspects, but all of these things have been looked at and not been flagged as major issues of challenges or problems that are different from any other development that would go on. So that's the first comment I wanted to make. The second comment is there's been a couple of comments about engineering analysis that hasn't been done, and I wanted to just clarify what we're saying in the report. There are significant engineering analyses that have already been completed, which talk about the development's impact to the district's infrastructure. So things like sewer capacity downstream, water pressure impacts in terms of if the building is serviced, can it be serviced properly? And those have already been analyzed. The details that are yet to be done happen later in the process, and those are things where it's what is the size of the service lateral that has to be done for the property itself. So there are no infrastructure impacts that we're concerned about that would guide council's decision one way or the other. So I just wanted to clarify that because it seems like there weren't any direct questions on it about the engineering department's input to the report. So I wanted to hope that I'd clarify that a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rand. That's very helpful, I think, because I think sometimes it's, we're always very cautious in our pieces of these things. So it's nice to know that those things are being looked at. So yeah, I'll speak to this. I guess my general comments. It is a very difficult lot. No matter what goes there, it's going to create some problems, and so we're always looking at trade-offs on this. If I look at this, the lot is going to be 3 stories, whether that's a piece. I mean, that's in keeping with the buildings on either side and those pieces. Whether it's 3 or 4, I think comes down to the nuance of the deciding factor of council and in the community. My biggest concerns on this are always the shading, and I do really appreciate the fact that they've recognized that back corner being the critical piece, because that was one of the big things that hung me up last time. Was it was a little bit higher, but also it didn't make any concessions to the back, to the northmost residents to provide some additional light benefit in there. I'm not concerned with the social benefit piece. I will say that we deal a lot of these things at the CRD table. They are almost exclusively larger entities. They're difficult to fit into these kind of scale, as was noted by the proponent. They just are. They just have a hard time. The only real option available is some agreements where some can be purchased below market, and those can be managed through the CRD. But that does not impact the building itself. It's just an agreement piece as part of it. But even then, on these size, it's difficult. They're typically 30 to 50 units and above on those. I actually agree with Councillor Ney on this. I think these are the kind of housing, one of the many kinds of housing that we need in the community. It is expensive. It meets a very specific need, but it does meet a need, and more housing obviously benefits and frees up those other pieces. And I do appreciate the efforts made for the tree cover. I think that if we're looking at the overall tree canopy on this, it considerably exceeds the ask in these kind of areas, and so I think those have benefits to it. Where it comes down to at the end of the day, to my mind, is really, I think they've addressed my primary concerns around that front tree. So then it's really just massing, and I think that's really a judgment call by members of the council. That being said, I see this as being exactly as Councillor Appleton pointed out, the kind of feedback I would look to the public to provide, to go to public hearing and get a sense from the public about where their concerns are and get the broadest possible input into that, so that and this is borderline. I think everybody sort of said this is we're sort of hovering on the slightly too big or slightly or just barely small enough to approve, and that to me speaks to exactly the kind of situation where we would seek additional public input to make sure that we're sussing out the nuances of those pieces. So I'm not going to support the motion as it's laid out. I would like to see it based on the conversations I've had here today and what I've heard from the proponent. I would like to go to a public hearing and hear the public's input on it. That being said, I'll leave my comments at that point. I guess I should also, I do appreciate it, while still larger than I'm comfortable with. I think there's two things. The FAR reduction from 2.1 to 1.87 over the course of this journey is significant. And, you know, a lot matters in design. And I will say the quality of this design makes it look a lot lighter than it could look with the same proportionality. So I think those things have to be weighed into the overall consideration as well. I'm not convinced it's supportable, but I think it's worthy of the public input. So those are my comments. Any other discussion at this point? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, which is to decline the application as it sits here. So I'm ready to call the question. Just making sure that I have one counselor online here, so I want to make sure there's no additional hands popping up. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All of those in favor of the motion to decline, and those opposed, Councillor Appleton, Councillor Ney, and myself oppose. So that passes. That application as it stands right now is declined, so it will not be going to public hearing. That does not mean it cannot come back to this body, either in a few months' time as is, or with some modification in a shorter time frame. So thank you to the proponents for being here and being so ready to answer questions. And so that's those pieces. I don't think there's anything else for us to deal with on this. I don't know, Ms. Oh, we should just have a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Oh, we're almost there. You know, yes, you better. Just 15 minutes should be adequate.
I'll make a motion to extend the meeting by 15 minutes.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? My apologies. I should have kept a closer eye on that. I'm so used to ending at 10 as a maximum, not 9. So new business. Is there nobody's given notice of bringing anything forward at this point? So I don't see any hands on new business. So just correspondence from other governments or agencies. And I believe this is you, Mr. Haran, is going to give a quick, Mr. Rennick, sorry, is going to provide a quick overview of the slightly revised terms of reference for Bowker Creek Initiative. Welcome, Mr. Rennick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just get a good sound check?
Sound perfect from our end. Thank you.
Terrific. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to speak to you tonight about the Bowker Creek Initiative. So as the Mayor mentioned, we received a request from CRD to endorse the updated terms of reference to the Bowker Creek Initiative. But we thought this would be a good opportunity to do a little bit of background into the initiative and to talk about some of the achievements. So in 1997, the CRD recognized the need for cooperation among the various local governments in the region to develop management plans for creek watersheds. And Bowker Creek was identified as being a high priority watershed, one that was in need of a plan. So in 2002, the CRD convened a forum of stakeholders to begin developing a management plan. That was called the Bowker Creek Watershed Management Plan, which was endorsed in 2003 by CRD, Victoria, Salish, and Oak Bay. In 2004, a steering committee was struck to manage the implementation of that plan. And that steering committee is what we know today as the Bowker Creek Initiative. So Oak Bay has been involved with the Bowker Creek Initiative for 18 years, going back to its founding in 2004. So since the adoption of the Watershed Management Plan, there have been several significant accomplishments within the watershed. Of course, in 2011, there was the publication of the Bowker Creek Blueprint, the 100-year action plan, which was endorsed by Oak Bay Council in 2012. In 2015, Oak Bay restored a section of the creek alongside Oak Bay Secondary School, which transformed that section of creek from a hard-sided concrete channel into a much more naturalized riparian habitat. And most recently, the Bowker Creek Initiative has been working to support the Friends of Bowker Creek as they attempt to reintroduce chum salmon to the creek. Oak Bay has been a proud partner of the Bowker Creek Initiative, as I said, for nearly 2 decades, and staff are excited to keep working with this body. The initiative brings together representatives from 3 municipal governments, the Capital Regional District, and members of many community organizations. And I'd be happy to take your questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rennick. Are there any questions of Mr. Rennick on this at this point? No questions are popping up here, so
I'll just like to move the staff recommendation.
the terms of reference be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on those?
Just to thank staff for continuing on with this. I think this is a great initiative, and it's always been a wonderful thing to support.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Don't see any. Looking online here, don't see any, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That carries. We need to adjourn. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Councillor Ney, if you can just log back into the other session, we will continue that other piece quickly. And with that, we're going to, did I call the question on the adjournment? I did. Yes. Okay. We're adjourned. We are officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. And we will just give us a couple minutes here to change things over.